What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Jackie Chan is the man, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at the world of movie news and movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. And then we will have our joint review of The Foreigner, starring Jackie Chan himself. And then Joel will have 2 mystery mini reviews, and I will have 2 mystery mini reviews as well. We're going to blow you guys' mind with 5 movie reviews this week. What are we going to think about all of them? Well, you're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where my co-host and I will talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you're new to the podcasting world or the movie world, and you accidentally stumble across this podcast because you're taking a risk on us, and you want to get some movie knowledge, and you are not a movie fan, well, hopefully we can convince you to be one. This is episode 203, and if you are new to the show, like I said, welcome. If you're a returning listener, also welcome. We love you all regardless. Typically what we do in this podcast is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. And of course we will have our reviews of movies that have come out on the weekend, and of course the box office results as well to accompany the movies that we talk about. For this week's episode, get this, because Joel's not even ready for it. We're about to blow you guys' minds right now. So obviously we're going to be doing a joint review of The Foreigner. Now we also have 4 other mini reviews that we're going to give you guys. Joel's going to do 2 of them, and I'm going to do 2 of them. And it's going to be quite magical because you have no idea what we're going to be talking about. You don't know which movies we're going to spin at you. It's going to be wonderful. But you're going to have to tune in for that. And speaking of tuning in for that, if you actually want to bypass everything, news, trailers, whatever, as you guys have started to notice over the past few weeks, I've been putting the times for the movies that we talk about in the description. So if you want to skip ahead, go ahead. It's all down below if you just want to get straight to the reviews. And before I introduce the beautiful co-host over there, just to let you guys know, I appreciate all the support and everything. So please like, subscribe, comment, whatever you have to do. Spread this around and let people know this is a pretty great podcast with a smart person over there and someone that just loves complaining about movies in his bedroom. Joel, speaking of the smart person, that would be you, sir. How are we doing this week?
Pretty good. Been an eventful week, both for Hollywood and for me. Just a lot of work and screenings and movie watching, and it's going to be a packed one this upcoming week too. So, doing pretty well, and I'm going to be attending my boss's wedding this coming week. So, it's getting pretty crazy.
Yeah,
certainly getting to the end of the year with a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, so. Joel and I are just going to be exhausted between now and January, probably until Oscar season. So yeah, don't contact us until March. So yeah, no, it's been a pretty good week over here. You know, Joel attended one of the screenings that I went to, but I have been to 4 screenings in like the past 7 days. It's insane. And then Joel and I got 2 more this coming week, and that will be on next week's episode. So it's just busy, guys. But that's okay. We love doing this for you guys. This is why we do it. We love to do it. So without any further ado, so we can get to the news, trailers, and those mystery reviews, and of course The Foreigner, let's begin. Joel, unfortunately, we got to start out with some painful stuff for the movie news this week, but there was a humongous bombshell that dropped, and it was not the Star Wars trailer. Joel, unfortunately, what was it?
Yeah, so, word kind of began going around that there was going to be this piece that dropped in the New York Times alleging that Harvey Weinstein for decades has been sexually harassing or assaulting, or at least in maybe 3 or 4 cases, raping actresses, and then also kind of railroading their movies if they, rejected his advances. And then that piece dropped, and also an amazing one that's absolutely horrific in the New Yorker. That is a great piece of journalism, but it's horrifying to read. Dropped as well. And a lot of stuff has happened in the wake of that. There's been a lot of empowering of women in Hollywood to come forward about their own sexual assault, some men as well. And now, there have been repercussions. The Weinstein Company has shut down, or is like apparently in the process of shutting down. There's been some conflicting reports on that, but I feel like they're probably in the midst of it. Also, Weinstein was kicked out, pretty much effective immediately, and then he ran off somewhere. There have been a lot of conflicting accounts about that too, because we heard that maybe he was going to Europe, pulling a Roman Polanski. Some people saw him like leaving for Arizona or something to go to rehab. Some people saw him on TMZ talking about his sister or something. Anyway, it's weird. I don't know where he is right now, but it's certainly not with the Weinstein Company. And also, as of last night, this broke that he's been kicked out of the Academy, which is huge because of just how many Oscars he's won. They really broke with tradition there. It's just been kind of a pretty depressing week. Somebody tweeted, "What a decade this week has been in regards to this stuff," and it's really pretty accurate. I mean, the stories coming out are just horrible. Everybody from Gwyneth Paltrow now to Ava Green and to Angelina Jolie. These people have been coming out of the woodwork to talk about their experiences, and obviously we applaud them for that, because that takes some level of bravery, especially right now. The scene is that basically powerful men in Hollywood and elsewhere are creeps, perverted creeps, and we have one as a president. You got Bill Cosby. He might have been acquitted, but he was literally in a trial for this stuff. Roger Ailes last year, before he died, all that stuff broke out. It's just a bad week. And now, even after this, we had some news break about the Amazon Studios chief, and just basically this has been a pretty notable couple of weeks for outing powerful men in powerful places on either coast of their kind of predatory behavior, whether it's sexually or whether it's something like who was it? There was somebody, like, I think maybe tied to the Weinstein Company, who was like extorting or something, a felon, or I don't know. Anyway, it's just been really like a notable couple of weeks of outing like big people in power and their vices, essentially. And the big one, of course, at its center is Harvey Weinstein, who, we've heard these rumors for a long time. We knew that the guy was a creep from, early on in all of this. I had been hearing rumors about this stuff for a decade, and I'm not surprised that it came out, this week, especially because of just where we are as a country, being watchful, being more proactive toward, reporting these people for these things. And it's been depressing, but certainly interesting to see that there have been actual consequences, because I don't think we're used to that yet. The act of having consequences is very rare right now. So anyway, been a depressing week, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I know that the NYPD has been launching investigation into this, which is going to be interesting to see if anything comes out of that, because when police come in, it's kind of questionable whether or not it's going to happen in terms of an actual legal consequence. But in any case, the guy's ruined, so even if he doesn't get arrested, we're not going to hear from him again, probably. And he's been so tarred by the sheer magnitude of this controversy that even if he isn't arrested, he's completely done. There's no more getting an Oscar for him, especially considering he's been kicked out of the Academy. They're not even going to give him the time of day, and it was near unanimous. I think they had to get more than a 2/3 vote. So, and they got well over that. I think only a couple of people abstained from voting or something. So, I mean, the guy's ruined. It's been a really dramatic week because of that. And Chase, I want to get your thoughts on this because I'm like happy that he's out. I'm happy that he's done. I'm really happy that there's been actual consequences for this rather than sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah, because before we saw The Foreigner on Wednesday, I told Joel just like when you hear about all this news, it's actually even creepier to know that his company was behind Wind River, knowing the themes in that movie, and it's just disgusting, man. And this has been going on for decades in this industry, especially the entertainment industry, where these powerful men they abuse their power, and it's just I don't get it. I really don't. Like, you have to be a sick human being to harass someone, assault someone like that. It's just I don't understand their mindset. Like, just thinking that a piece of green paper gives them the power to ultimately scar these people. Like, it just I don't get it. But I'm glad that he's out. I don't want him anywhere.
The predation dates back to the early parts of these people's career. Ashley Judd was 17 when this happened with Weinstein. And you think about that, I mean, and then, getting to something like Wind River, and we got to talk about this because the Weinstein Company is apparently going to be renamed. I don't know. That's another one of those rumors that is either or kind of thing. But nevertheless, they took the current war off of their schedule, which is bizarre to me. That was, I think he was right in the middle of re-editing it, so that's probably why it was in current works. So if he had to leave, then the movie had to, be halted. And now Wind River is their play, but will it go anywhere? Will people? I feel like Jeremy Renner might be the best option there because he's generally well liked in the movie. But do they even campaign for this now because of the name that's attached to it? It's going to be very interesting. I mean, setting aside, it's hard to, but setting aside the controversy that broke, Weinstein changed a lot of things for Hollywood. Not everything, though, and I think that his influence has been a little overstated. I urge everybody to listen to Screen Talk, which is a podcast over at IndieWire. It's Eric Cohn and Ann Thompson, who spent the last couple of episodes talking about all of this. And Eric Cohn made a great point, which is that really, I mean, Weinstein brought a lot of directors and actors their fame, like Tarantino and Kevin Smith and all of these people. Daniel Day-Lewis, he was a large part of Daniel Day-Lewis's career so far, but he didn't bring about queer cinema in the 90s. He didn't in terms of mainstream stuff, he didn't make Harry Potter happen. He didn't make Lord of the Rings happen. He's had a big influence in indie cinema, though, and so what I'm wondering is, what happens now with the movies that they were set to make? It'll just be interesting to see where all of that goes. Whether the current war is permanently shelved because of this, because there's always going to be that, the sexual predator was in the midst of editing it. Will that even come out now? It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and I think the one positive thing you can take away from this is I'm glad all these women are speaking up and really tearing this guy down, because this needs to happen. I'm glad that this perverted quilt that's covering America is being it's being the fabric is just falling apart, and I want this to change. Like, it's just disgusting to hear. And I think what irks me the most is when people like Weinstein go, well, I grew up in a different time, that it's like an old dog learning new tricks. It's like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, because first of all, this is 2017. This isn't the 1940s anymore. What happened back in the day was absolutely disgusting. So you should, I don't know, change out of it because it's not right. Like, it's a moral thing. It's not an age thing. It's a moral thing, and that's what makes me angry. It's like, you can learn not to do this. Like, I don't understand. Like, because one of the stories, I don't mean to be graphic, but it's like, some woman accused him of masturbating in front of him, and it's like, how do you? That's not an old dog trying to learn a new trick. Like, that's a person that's like mentally screwed up. Like, he needs to go to jail. Like, I'm glad that Joel brought that up, because throughout many decades we have just swept under the rug, the whole idea of like sexual harassment or sexual assault in the workplace, and it's like, no, this needs to be addressed, and we need to tear this down, because this is a new age, this is a new millennium, and this why are we reverting back to 1950s culture and say, it was that's what they grew up on? It's like, no, what they're doing is gross misconduct. Like, and there was also another story before we started recording. I don't know if this is true, but it's like, because they keep digging deeper and deeper into this. They were saying that some of these actors and actresses who signed contracts, like, they're looking into it, and they're saying that some of the fine print might actually say that Harvey Weinstein could do this stuff to him, and it's like, I don't get it, man.
Yeah, I mean, he could receive a lawsuit and then settle and keep his job. That was essentially what his contract said, and and then you read, like, first of all, we got to talk about this, because what about that response from him? Like, was that not the most bizarre thing that you've ever read? Where he was talking about how, this is how it used to be, and then, like, quoted Jay-Z awkwardly and talked about how he was going to refocus onto the NRA. It just like this weird, bizarre thing. And I was posting about it in a group on Facebook, and I was like, did he just like jot this down on a napkin and then give it to somebody? There's no thought put into it. It wasn't even an apology. It was just kind of like, oh, you caught me. Well, I'm going to go focus on the NRA of all things. Try to fight for gun control. And it's kind of like morbidly amusing, because gun control advocates have been saying, yeah, we don't need you, buddy. Take your advocacy elsewhere. It's so like bizarre. That response is so typical of this half-hearted kind of excuse making that's been done. We saw it in the wake of the Trump tape, where he was talking on the bus, and that it was just locker room talk because that's just how it was then, or whatever. It's like, if it's how it was then it's like you said, be with us now. It's 2017. It's not 1970.
Joel, I have a pretty nice relationship with Joel. I would like to think so, unless he's been faking this entire time. But I do talk to Joel.
You found me out.
Yeah, exactly. I talk to him about other stuff besides movies, and I've talked to him many times about women. Hey, I got this date coming up, or hey, my dating life is going pretty well. I have never once even used like vulgar terminology like Trump did, or what Harvey Weinstein's alluding to, like locker room talk. Listen, I'm a 27-year-old male. I mean, I if anything, that locker room talk is something like our generation would do, but I have the moral decency not to talk like that. Like, of course I'm vulgar.
Yeah,
I use language and stuff, but like, I'm also respectful. Like, I don't understand that mentality, dude.
Even with our generation, stuff like that would be. It was in that sort of transitioning period between people finding it normal and people finding it disgusting anyway. So it would have been one of those things where it would have been discouraged. It would have been discouraged even among men who respect women. And speaking of which, there have been a lot of responses, and I want to clear this up. There have been a lot of responses of people finding it horrifying because they have daughters and sisters. I'm going to echo everybody else here. Let's stop talking in those terms. Women are women, regardless of their relationship to us, and it shouldn't be said.
Yeah, it's a moral thing. It's not because you have a daughter. It should just because you should treat them with respect and dignity.
It's just a moral thing. If you can only be horrified by this because you have somebody related to you that is a woman, it makes it about you. It makes it about your ego, and it's terrible. And women are women. This just shouldn't happen in today's world. That's why I'm sort of slowly wishing that people like him and Woody Allen and Bill Cosby would just that we would fast forward to when these people are gone, because I feel like the whole scene will be better.
Yeah.
There's going to be more respect. There's going to be consequences on a regular basis for stuff like this, rather than this being such a big story. Half of it is the actual story. The other half is that there's been actual consequences, because we aren't used to that. It isn't part of the regular courtesy right now of answering this stuff with genuine action. And it's just amazing to me that we're talking about it in those terms. It should be commonplace.
Yeah.
It should not be a surprise. But let's move on from this, because it's a depressing story. Let's get to happier stuff. Although I'm going to have to say, with this first thing, there is I'm not going to make an accusation, but there's a really weird part of this Luc Besson story that I have to wonder what was going on behind the scenes here with the discovery of an actress. Okay, so Luc Besson, whose company is EurovaCorp, which is somehow still
in business still.
How is that possible? I don't understand it. It's got to be like maybe a single office building somewhere. It's probably just Luc Besson and his nephew, who is really good with the computers and is somehow keeping this thing afloat. They are actually starting production on a new movie despite losing $4 billion on Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. That's just a guess. It's called Anna, and it's going to primarily star Helen Mirren, or not primarily, more prominently star Helen Mirren, Luke Evans, and Cillian Murphy. But there's also the discovery of a Russian model named Sasha Luss. There's really no details about what the movie's about, but Chase, I'm going to say it. I had this weird, especially after reading this stuff this week about Harvey Weinstein, and you even heard who was it? Somebody came forward about Steven Seagal. Not really sexual harassment so much as the situation that could have led to it, because he held this audition and he was wearing a kimono the entire time, and they were unsure that there was anything underneath that kimono. You just hear about all this stuff. So I gotta say, the fact that there was this discovery of a Russian model named Sasha Luss as the main character, and it being Luc Besson, and Luc Besson's movies being what they are generally, which is not exactly befitting of female characters. Did it give you this feeling that there was something going on in the background here that was perhaps unseemly? Because it's just very strange to me that in the midst of all this, there's this story about a guy who makes movies in which women are consistently victimized, even if they're the main character. They're consistently victimized or made to be sort of second class to the male characters. and now he discovers this Russian model and puts her in his movie. It's weird. It gave me a little bit of a chill in the midst of this news this week. And I was wondering if it gave you the same, because this is odd. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the movie. You know, I generally liked what I've seen from, or almost liked at least what I've seen from Besson. You know, he also wrote Taken. The first one was pretty good. So I'm excited for that. But this is odd to me, and it just seems like there could be a story that's going to like release 10 years from now about how not involving sexual assault, but it just seems really weird that this old white guy discovered a Russian model who's very young to play in his movie. And in the midst of this week's news, maybe it's my conspiracy theorist, but just this is odd to me. But nevertheless, this is going to be a new action film, and we'll see what happens with this, whether it's even made, because who knows? The office building in which they are housed could shut down, and then they'll be pushed out of nowhere, Texas, and the movie is not made anymore. That's that's my guess. But yeah, this is certainly an interesting bit of news in the wake of Valerian's complete disaster.
Yeah, well, to go on your conspiracy theory, I don't buy into this stuff unless I hear something or like they uncover something, so I'm not going to even jump into that. But in terms of them actually like making a movie, like an actual feature film in the light of Valerian's like nosedive, is probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen in quite some time. Because Joel and I, like, we knew right off the bat when we saw the first trailer to Valerian, we said, if this movie does not at least break even, I don't know how Luc Besson's going to keep his doors open. Because he basically funded the entire movie by himself. The budget for Valerian, and this is not including advertising or marketing, is $177 million. That's the baseline of his production budget. You have to double that for the theater cut. Then you got to add on marketing. We're talking at least $500 million probably to break even. Right now, worldwide, it's only made $225. He's probably lost half of his money. And it's like, I don't... how? This has got to be one of those Leica situations where, as much as I love Leica films, where you have like Coraline, Box Trolls, Paranorman, and Kubo and the Two Strings, his movies do not typically do well. And by his, I mean Travis Knight. He pretty much runs the whole studio. But then you find out that his dad is a successful business owner, and he's basically funding his studio. So I think Luc Besson's got some ghost investor or something, because I don't know how he's funding his stuff. Now, I think he's more popular overseas for sure, because, you know, that's where he comes from. He's not from America, so sure, I'll check it out, I guess, because the thing with Valerian, I said in my review and I still stand by it, it's a visually impressive movie. It's probably one of the most visually striking things I've seen all year. And yes, I would even include it in the same category as like a Blade Runner. It's very creative. It's very colorful. It's inventive. I love the world building. Like, it's a good looking movie. It's just the story is like, okay. And that's kind of how I felt about Blade Runner. Whoops, sorry. But with this one, sure, I'll check it out. But yeah, I'm more interested in how the hell he got funding for this.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. There's got to be some sort of tax break thing going on behind the scenes that allows him to actually like raise money for this, because I don't know where he's getting it otherwise. He's certainly not getting it off the backs of his previous movies.
No, he's not.
It's very weird.
Unless he's still working off that Lucy money, because Lucy did pretty well in its budget.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, man. It's very interesting. And just as interesting as this next bit of news, which is that Will Smith is going to be a voice in an animated movie for the first time since Shark Tale back in 2004. This one's coming from Blue Sky, and it's called Spies in Disguise. Although I wish the title was different, and I'm going to get to that in a second, because it's based on a short film. But he's joined by Tom Holland, aka Spider-Man, and he's going to voice a spy named Lance Sterling, and Tom Holland's going to be Walter, who invents the gadgets that Lance uses on his missions. So he's kind of Q in this universe, and it's going to be an animated movie, and it's weird because the premise is that there's some unexpected turn in some mission, and they have to rely on each other in a way that they did not expect, which seems rather dramatic to me. But nevertheless, it's going to be coming out in January 2019, which means that I'm gonna I'm gonna predict something. So, and this is a weird thing to predict, but bear with me. So I believe that this is going to be that weird movie that is not submitted for consideration at the Oscars for animated feature. The reason is because January tends to be a month in which that kind of animated movie comes out. There have been some exceptions. Escape from Planet Earth back in 2013 came out in February, and it wasn't submitted for consideration as animated feature. But since then, we've had The Nut Job, Norman the North. There was another one. Strange Magic back in 2015. And it's just funny because we get this early year animated movie, and then by the end of the year, it seems that even the studio has forgotten about it because they, like, The Nut Job was the only thing from that studio in 2014. They didn't submit it for consideration at the Oscars. It wasn't even able to be made to the long list that would be whittled down to the short list that they would be whittled down further to the movies that they were considering. And so it's very odd. The January release date is concerning, but this sounds fun. I just wish that the name was the name of the original short, which was Pigeon Impossible. I thought that was a pretty clever title. They probably wouldn't be able to use that, I guess, but Spies in Disguise is also cute. I like that title. Chase, are you particularly looking forward to this in the wake of, like, Ferdinand looking pretty good?
Well, Joel, listen, guys, I usually give Joel 3 strikes throughout the week, and I'm already going to give him strike 1 for mentioning Shark Tale in the episode. And also, this sounds great because with Will Smith, I mean, he's got the charisma to charge any animated movie. I'm looking forward to his kind of like take on the genie and Aladdin. Regardless of the movie overall, he's probably the most looking forward to I am on that movie. And then Tom Holland, with what we've seen in Spider-Man Homecoming, he's got the charisma as well. So this is going to be charisma overload, and you need that for animation. Animated characters are very pun intended, animated, and so you have to have someone that's energetic behind the mic, but also kind of bring the dramatic side as well. We know that Will Smith can do both. He can be hyperactive, fast-talking, basically Vince Vaughn type of person, and then he can also flip to a more dramatic side where he's a lot calmer. He's delivering his lines in a very mature manner. And Tom Holland, we saw that as well in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, I realize he's done movies beyond that, but that's the only one I've ever seen of him. And I saw in Spider-Man the balance of both, where he is this hyperactive teenager, but also can be serious when the time is needed. So yeah, sure, it sounds fun, but I think bringing these two guys on is quite good for an animated movie, especially, like Joel said, the masterpiece that was not the Finding Nemo ripoff Shark Tale, but, yeah, so that's, it's just simply lovely, Joel. You know what's really weird, Joel, is when you go to a Comic-Con or like D23, they announce something on their slate, and then, would you know it? Like 3 months later, they decide to pull it completely. What am I talking about? Okay, so Disney had this movie called Gigantic, and it was going to be basically like Jack and the Beanstalk type of story. And you're thinking, okay, it's Disney, it could be cute, it could be fun. It's from the people behind like Frozen and Wreck-It Ralph. It's like, okay, you got my interest. They pulled it completely. Disney typically doesn't do this. Usually they'll push movies, or they might put it on the shelf for maybe a little bit, but it'll come back. But this is kind of like is pulled indefinitely. Like it said, it's pulled from due to creative issues, and they want to really focus on like Frozen 2 and all that stuff. So I don't know. I would have liked to seen this because it's going to be a new property. Like when Wreck-It Ralph came out, or Tangled, or even the first Frozen, it was great because it was new, fresh, and exciting stuff. And just seeing them focus on sequels and whatnot, which I am excited for Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph Breaks the Internet or whatever. I still want to see them do original content because that's what Disney's best at, is creating these kind of new, fresh fairy tales for a new generation and whatnot. So I don't know. I like the concept art that they had at D23. Joel, I don't know if you saw this, but it was like they had the beanstalk going to the sky. They had like the main character hanging off of the beanstalk. It looked colorful and exciting. So pulling this off their schedule just seems kind of weird for me because Disney is a money-making powerhouse, and they're not really shy to put as many movies out in a year as possible. So this is kind of weird for me. I wanted to see it, but I guess we aren't. Joel, were you even excited for Gigantic?
Yeah, I was curious to see it. Like you said, it was going to be a new project for them, new property, I should say, and the concept was neat. I did see the D23 art that was released, and it looked neat. I'm wondering what happened behind the scenes here. Like, they rarely do this. They rarely pull things because they're such, they have just a tiny bit of money somewhere.
It all comes from their live action adaptations, not from Star Wars or Marvel. Like they want you to think it's actually from their smaller films. So get that through your head.
Exactly. I mean, they have maybe a couple $100,000.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And so I'm just wondering how the creative differences in the wake of them trying to refocus onto Frozen 2 is just very interesting to me. They with Marvel, they tend to like hire on directors and then underestimate their ability to with the exception of somebody like Taika Waititi. I think it's an issue of the screenplay matching up with the details of the world that they're building. But sometimes they'll take an Edgar Wright or a Patty Jenkins even, and then after a while things follow through because they have this different vision. And in this case, I just have to wonder, what were the extenuating circumstances in the background of what happened that they had to remove it from their schedule indefinitely. It just seems very, very sudden and like absolute. It's very interesting. Very interesting for sure. I hope that things fall together in a way that it can be made. Even if it isn't at Disney or something, I don't know, but it's very interesting to see this happen at Disney of all places. That's the big newsworthy thing, is that we don't see this very often from them. That they usually, unless it's maybe like a sequel or something that originally they were going to make, and then way early on before they ever even showed us art, they decided that it wasn't going to happen. That's happened before. And it's happened with Pixar as well. But something that's been, there has been work on the movie, and then it's pulled. That's odd for them. That's happened at other places. It's just not very common that it happens at Disney. So I'm very interested to see the details of this story. We'll probably never know, but
Well,
what happened here?
Yeah, it's just weird, man, because like when you hear about the D23 stuff, they announce everything, whether it be from their Marvel branch or Star Wars branch or live action, Pixar, Disney animation. Like, they announce everything. Like, they hype everything up, and they were hyping Gigantic up to no end. And it's like, when you hear about it, you're like, okay, they're excited about it. It can get me excited about it. But then when you hear about stuff like this, it's like, what happened behind closed doors? You were so excited about it 3 months ago, and it's like, oh, we're going to completely drop it. Because when they have concept art like that, that means they were knee-deep in pre-production. So why did they just stop cold turkey? So we will never know, Joel, but you know what? It is Disney. I think they'll find their next hit, in a few weeks with Thor, and then maybe with Star Wars. So,
maybe a few years from now, they'll get some things that make, tens or twenties of dollars.
Exactly. Like I realize they're signing for bankruptcy next week, but Disney, you'll pull through. It's okay. You'll get all your money from Disneyland. So the next story, I'm really excited about, just considering the talent behind it. But Scott Frank, who wrote Logan earlier this year, still one of my favorite films of the year, and I got the screener for it from 20th Century Fox, so they're really pushing it for awards consideration, so I can't wait to see where it goes from there. But he is tapped to adapt a novel called No Exit for 20th Century Fox, also the company behind Logan, like I said. So yes, he wrote Logan and whatnot, and it's one of the best films of the year. So get this, I really like the synopsis quite a bit. It could be a pretty good little thriller. So it focuses on a college student named Darby Thorne who becomes trapped in a blizzard while on a road trip to see her mother. Seeking refuge at a highway rest stop for the night, she encounters 4 strangers also struggling with a predicament, seeking shelter for the night. Over the course of the long, dark, and unexpected stop, Darby discovers a young, kidnapped girl locked inside of a trunk of one of the cars parked at the rest stop. But whose car is it? She does not know. The only way to save the girl is to find out before the blizzard clears up and becomes too late. Yes, yes, yes. If you think about the dark kind of thriller aspect of Logan, it works out for that source material. It seems like if Scott Frank can even bring the most inkling of Logan-esque tone to this film called No Exit, I'm all for it. Now, the title does sound a little cheesy, and it could go either way. Like, it could just be another throwaway thriller that 20th Century Fox has up their sleeves. But I think, especially when we get to the trailer section, my God, when we get to the trailer section, 20th Century Fox is taking risk, and I'm glad that they're doing that. I hope they take a risk on this and just go completely dark with it and just have one of those kind of like Alfred Hitchcock-esque thrillers where it's like something has happened, we got to figure out who done it, a nice who done it movie. It could be good, but when you bring talent on behind one of the best films of the year, then you got my money, my friend. So I'm looking forward to this quite a bit. Joel, what about you? Does any person that's involved with Logan being attached to another project excite you?
Well, yeah, but not even just Logan. He also wrote, I think wrote or co-wrote the screenplay for Minority Report.
Exactly.
For Spielberg, and that's one of my favorite screenplays of all time in the sci-fi genre. So, I mean, it's an exciting bit of news, and it sounds like a fascinating movie. So I'm excited for it for sure. Attaching Scott Frank to pretty much anything is grounds for excitement. Very, very excited for sure.
Yeah,
there's not much to say that you didn't already say. Basically.
Well, yeah, I know. I like how you're super calm. You're like, I like this, man. I like it.
I like it
a lot. So moving on to the next story, because you're right. I mean, there's really nothing to talk about. We're both super stoked. Scott Frank, please write Joel and I's biopic about the birth of this podcast. I think you'll do a good job. So anyways, the next bit of story is something basically for me, because I know Joel doesn't care about it, because I like to, you know what happens when a movie comes out and I get super excited and Joel just kind of rolls his eyes, Jigsaw, and Joel just gets really frustrated with me. I'm going to go ahead and geek out about this one because I do love the first one quite a bit. It's probably one of my favorite theater experiences ever, not even joking. So the Strangers 2 is coming out. There were photos that were released online, so you know it's coming. They're deep into production and whatnot, and the title has actually been released for the sequel. It's called Strangers Pray at Night. No, not Pray. They are not praying for Jesus. They are praying on victims. Strangers 2, if you guys have never seen the first one, Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman go to not a cabin in the woods, it's more of like a nice little home in the, out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of like their vacation getaway, and they're being stalked by a family full that wear masks and whatnot. I gotta tell you, seeing the first one in theaters was amazing. I was working at the theater at the time, and I remember I got free movies, and so I went on my day off, and I was the only one in the theater. And I was like, well, this is kind of weird, because believe it or not, the writer and director is actually lives in the vicinity, or he grew up in the vicinity that Joel and I actually live in, kind of. I mean, he grew up in, Joel, do you know where North Crowley's at?
I'm familiar with the name of the city. I don't know where it is, though.
Okay, so I think it's like maybe 20, 30 minutes somewhere beyond the Dallas and Plano borders. But, I mean, it's in Texas, and it's fairly close. So seeing a filmmaker that lived close to me as a teenager and grew up to a rival high school was awesome. I was like, this is the inspiration I need going into film school and whatnot. And so I went to go see it. And I absolutely love The Strangers. It's one of my favorite horror films I ever saw in high school. And you want to know why? And it's not because of, the violence or, jump scares. That's the thing. This movie relied on, basically no sound design. And that's what made it creepy. There's one scene in particular that still gets me, where Liv Tyler is in the kitchen. And she's just kind of standing there. And it's this nice long shot, and you can see the living room behind her, also with the hallway going into, other rooms throughout the house. The killer just walks in through the hallway, just stands there. And she's still doing her stuff. And by the time she turns around, he's just gone. It's like, that's what's creepy. It's like these three demented people are like the boogeymen and just plaguing throughout the house, and you never know where they're at, and that's what makes it so suspenseful. And so that's what the director did very, very well in the first one, is really create this atmosphere of just dread and just pure pins on needles type of excitement in the theater. And I miss that, Joel. I miss the excitement of horror films in theaters, and I think the actual absence of sound design actually helped that movie, because it made a normal home invasion movie to be even scarier than previously thought. So I'm looking forward to this. I love horror movies whenever I can get a chance to see them. Even if they look bad, I will still give them a shot. Case in point, I just saw The Babysitter on Netflix. I don't even like McG as a filmmaker, but that's probably the best film I've ever seen him do. It had some really creative gore moments, and it had its own unique style. So listen, if you can do it right, I will appreciate you forever. And I love the first Strangers. So you know what? Strangers Pray at Night, you got my attention. Joel, we've actually never discussed the first Strangers. What were your thoughts on the first one, and do you even care to see a sequel? Because the thing with the first one, I still remember reading this. When the film premiered, it actually revealed the identity of the killers. And someone mentioned this to either the director or someone, saying, you kind of take away the suspense by doing that. And so they actually changed the ending up to where they don't reveal at all. They just torture this couple and then move on. And that's what makes it more terrifying. You don't know who these people are. And I don't know if they're going to be revealed in the sequel. I don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, it could be turned out to be garbage, but I do love the first one, willing to give this one a shot. So, Joel, what say you? In, what was it, 2007? Did young Joseph see The Strangers?
It's 2008.
2008, excuse me.
It was actually the week of the first... It was the week after Indiana Jones came out, so it was the week of the first Sex and the City. That was the counter-programming for this. I was a big fan of The Strangers. I agree with you. I don't like The Last Shot. I think The Last Shot's a cheat, but everything else, I mean, you're totally right. It's an enormous success in terms of building tension. Using barely any sound design, like you said. It's one of the more effective recent home invasion movies that wasn't trying to be tongue in cheek in any way. Big fan. So I'm curious to see a sequel, but it'd be interesting to see where they go with that, because I don't want them to just do the same thing. That's always a bit tired. Even if it works, it'll probably be less effective because it's the same thing. But definitely very interested in a sequel if they do it right. Because I was a pretty big fan of the first one. So. I sometimes surprise Chase, because I'm sure that he wasn't really expecting me to have such a high opinion. I gave it 3.5 stars when I saw it back then. So that's top 10 contending material. It didn't make it, obviously, on my top 10, but it's one of the more effective horror movies that year. Not a great year for horror, but that was a really good one. So
yeah, I'm actually really surprised that you liked it, because yes, I've seen Lord of the Rings and whatnot, but I'm actually not the biggest fan of Liv Tyler, and that's actually one of my favorite movies she's ever been in, because she's really good at being terrified.
It was a really effective performance of desperation, and one of the better kind of scream queen performances in a while. She handled that part of it really well, and it's one of my favorite performances from her as well.
Yeah, so if you guys have never seen The Strangers, which is actually perfect because we're 2 weeks from Halloween. If you want something to watch, I highly implore you to check it out.
Know that it's also utterly pitiless and dark. It's not going to be like a fun Halloween thing. Maybe don't watch it on Halloween night, but watch it in the upcoming weeks if you want something that's really creepy. Or if you watch it on Halloween, make sure to watch something fun and scary after, because it's really like compelling, and it's executed really well. But it's a humorless, a very dark, very, very dark movie. So
exactly. So please don't expect to sleep that night if you just watch that and go to sleep, because you definitely won't. Also, a movie that's definitely not going to keep me up at night is the Gambit movie, 20th Century Fox. Let me sit you down just for a little bit. I'm about to praise you. Just give it like a few minutes. I'm about to praise you for the gonads that you have. But this needs to die. This just needs to die off and just never seek the light of day. They finally nailed a release date for the Gambit movie. It's going to come out Valentine's Day 2019. They're going to kind of do what Deadpool did and release it during... I don't know why. This doesn't scream out like a date movie or a couples movie. I mean, Deadpool, you have the kind of raunchy, violent nature to appeal to the guys, and then you have Ryan Reynolds, that appeals to the women, I guess. But I've talked to plenty of women that actually enjoyed Deadpool. They thought it was funny, they thought it was romantic, they love the action, so it actually appealed to both. Gambit does not appeal to both. First of all, if you are not a hardcore fan, most people don't even know who Gambit is. So just stop this. Channing Tatum, I love you to death, buddy, but you gotta just let this die off. Just let it just die off into comic book world of movies that have never been made. I could care less about this. I don't even want to see this. I realize that spin-off movies can work, i.e. Deadpool, but that was a special little, force of nature that just came and went, and I just don't feel like Gambit could live up to that kind of expectations, especially since what you're going to be doing with the New Mutants, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first of all, why are you sinking money into this character? Second of all, why Valentine's Day? And third of all, Joel, why is this movie even being made? I've been saying this for years. Just stop this. Just drop it. I do not care. So let me just throw it over to Joel. Joel, I mean, first of all, when you keep hearing about this movie like dying on life respiration and then kind of coming back and to keep dying, it's losing directors left and right. It keeps jumbling release dates. Now that it finally has a release date, do you think this movie's going to happen?
Well, I don't know if you heard this, but apparently Gore Verbinski's attached, or is like in talks to be attached. So that's another like risk-taking thing since he lost money for Disney. We've been hearing about this. And
speaking of Gore Verbinski, he also lost a little bit of money with 20th Century Fox, by the way, for A Cure for Wellness. So,
that
what?
That might be a case of, like, they maybe don't quite care about that just because it's such an odd movie. Maybe they just were like, okay, do your thing, and then, beyond that, they weren't worried. It is very weird that they would potentially choose him just because it's a very interesting situation to be in for certain for Fox, because again he's known for, as good as he is as a filmmaker, I think he's known for losing money. His movies don't sell beyond the Pirates movies. And
take that back, Joel. The first Ring did pretty well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about his blockbuster kind of
gotcha.
Like franchise kind of thing. This movie's been floating around since X-Men Origins Wolverine, because right after that came out, we had a version of Gambit in that movie played by I guess this is a different Gambit, isn't it? I don't know. There was a character in there, and I thought that they were like apparently going to make it with Taylor Kitsch or something, maybe it was just that character. Maybe I'm confusing this with Deadpool. I'm not quite sure, but like I'm pretty sure that this has been floating around for about 8 years. And you're right, it keeps losing directors. It keeps being like almost in production, and then it stops because a director dropped out or whatever. It's interesting, and the Valentine's Day release date thing. We're seeing this kind of the mid-February release date become kind of a refuge for some directors because next year you have Black Panther in that not that exact weekend, I don't think, but in that sort of release date, the mid-February release date. And then after that there will be Gambit, and it'll probably keep going. But I think it's because it offers some neat counter marketing to the romantic stuff. So it's kind of a brilliant maneuver because you kind of discourage other kinds of movies from getting in there, and it's kind of a good business move. It's a ruthless one, but to put your big gigantic movie in that weekend is a gamble, and or it's a gambit. Ha, okay.
Joel, you're fired.
Oh man, I enjoyed my run, folks. And I joke about that because Chase loves me. All right, so, but yeah, it's certainly interesting. Whether the movie actually happens, we'll find out probably within the next month.
I was just gonna say in 2 weeks we'll figure out another director dropped out. Like Gore's like, yeah, I'm good, fam. I'm gonna go ahead and leave. So it's like, yeah. Gore, we don't blame you.
What they need to do is like attach a director that has no baggage.
Yeah.
And by that I mean like a director who primarily works in animation or something. Make a Phil Lord and Chris Miller out of it. Not them, perhaps, but somebody who works in animations looking to break into live action. I feel like that needs to be what these movies do, because that way there's no baggage of people hearing the name Gore Verbinski and being like, oh, the Lone Ranger was a disappointment or whatever, and it just doesn't sell. And thus it doesn't get the campaign that it needs to, and thus it fails. I think that they need to just put a director who's kind of anonymous behind this, because sort of like Star Wars, it doesn't really matter.
Nope.
With an origin superhero movie, who directs it. Jon Favreau, back when he directed Iron Man, looking back at his career before then, you wouldn't think of him as an Iron Man director. Now we know him as the director of Iron Man because it made money. But before that, he was the guy who did Maid and Swingers, and he also directed, the funny Will Ferrell movie and the neat little Zathura movie, and then he comes out with the first Marvel movie, and now he's known as the director of Iron Man. That's his reputation now. And it's because they took a chance, rather than, I think, somebody who's established but who has been losing money. As much as I love the idea of Verbinski behind another blockbuster, because I love blockbuster Verbinski, I think that they need to maybe choose somebody else, honestly, in order to make this happen. But it'll be interesting. I am not sure who Gambit is, to be honest. I mean, beyond my experience with him in the X-Men Origins movie, that's about it. Like, I really don't know what his deal is. I can't even remember what he did in that movie. That movie I've tried to block out of my memory.
Well, everyone has. It's really funny that you mentioned Swingers, because it was actually directed by a director that was attached to Gambit for the longest time, Doug Liman. So it's like, yeah. So everyone's
That's
been
right.
attached.
I forgot that Doug Liman was one of the. Yeah, I mean, there have been so many directors attached to this thing. It's hard to keep track of who. I think he was the first one, though, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that,
he was.
like back, and in fact, yeah, it's coming back to me, because right after the X-Men Origins movie came out, I think that they were wanting to do. Oh man. Do you remember the days when they were going to do X-Men Origins Magneto?
Oh, God.
Yeah, they were trying to make that into a thing, and they were going to do Gambit, a Gambit standalone, and it was going to be Taylor Kitsch. And they had, in the wake of Jumper, it just seemed really funny, Doug Liman. and that was going to be his next movie. And then, of course, he went on. He dropped out and he made Fair Game, and actually kind of made good movies after that. After Jumper was a huge bust, and it was a different world completely in 2009 because we were going to have a Doug Liman directed Taylor Kitsch starring superhero movie. It just seems like such a completely what? It just seems weird. Anyway, Hollywood almost 10 years ago seems like a foreign land.
It was a foreign land, and
it was a foreign land.
Yeah. So Gambit, please never see the light of day. All right, unless you want to join a team film. All right, so that will be it for the news, guys. Joel, what was your favorite news story this week?
Well, obviously not Harvey Weinstein stuff. I would probably say Strangers. Actually, Scott Frank. Scott Frank writing another movie is always exciting, even if the movie doesn't work. It's been known to happen. But
I agree. Yeah. So and then of course Strangers, and then no one's excited for Gambit. All right, enough with the Gambit jabs.
It's sort of a tie. It's between Scott Frank writing that movie and the Strangers sequel. I'm very excited for both.
Yeah. Let's move on to some trailers, guys. Now, this is going to be really great because we have 3 huge blockbusters and 3 small indie films. So, I of course, give Joel all the Star Wars stuff, and I would like Joel to just introduce the trailer section to probably the biggest trailer to hit this week.
Yeah. No, totally a small trailer. Very tiny. All right.
Tiny.
Very tiny. So Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, dropped its last trailer. And, of course, this one comes out in a couple of months. In fact, 2 months from last night, I will be in the theater, my butt in the seat, to see this. I cannot wait. I've already bought my ticket. And because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, as some of you might know. Chase doesn't know that. It's a complete surprise.
Yeah, I just give him all the Star Wars stuff because, I'm like, well, who's going to talk about it?
Exactly. This is an excellent trailer. I feel like every single bit of it was a misdirect. There's been a lot of, theorizing and stuff. I'm not going to get into that on this show, but I think that I could do an entire, podcast series about theories regarding Star Wars, and I'm not going to do that on this channel, but nevertheless, I'm very excited for this. Obviously, this is an excellent trailer. They really sold the tone I think they're going for, which is a little darker than The Force Awakens. But again, it's like the nature of this trailer and the editing of it seems to me like everything is a misdirect. The everything from the last scene of the trailer with apparently a conversation between Rey and Kylo, I honestly think that doesn't take place. I think that she's talking to somebody else, and I think he reaches his hand out to somebody else. The scene with Kylo about to shoot what is apparently the cockpit in which Leia is sitting, or not the cockpit, but the whatever it's called, the main flight area. I don't think that's how that happens. Honestly, I think everything in this trailer is completely taking us into a direction that the movie does not. Again, I have theories. I'm not going to give them here because it's just, it's whatever. That could take us, that could take me like an hour. I could literally talk about it in an hour, but whatever the case, it was an excellent trailer, and it was really funny because Rian Johnson had, it had been reported, apparently falsely or something, that Rian Johnson said not to watch the trailer. From what I understand, he didn't actually say that, but then he made fun of it and himself in a certain way. Like when the trailer dropped, he then tweeted, "Forget what I said. Watch it, watch it, watch it." And it was super funny to see that happen, because it's just such a well-edited, well-constructed trailer, unlike the next one. And a little jab in there. But yeah, I can't wait for this. I mean, there's not much to talk about. We we like to limit the number of repeat trailers that we do, and this one kind of achieved sort of the same feeling as the first trailer in that we get the sense that this is going to be a bit of a darker affair for the Star Wars universe than The Force Awakens was, which was largely, introducing us to new characters and reintroducing us to old characters. This is now immersing us in the story, in the midst of it, and, it's going to be preparing us for the big climax of Episode 9. And with somebody like Rian Johnson behind it, I mean, who's not excited for this? And if you're not excited for this, what is your Twitter so that I can block you? Because how can you not be excited for this? I'm just kidding. I'm stoked. I know that Chase is sort of a casual Star Wars fan, but Chase, did you find a lot to love in this?
Well, I just, Joel, as a businessman myself, which is completely untrue, but as a businessman myself, I don't understand how The Force Awakens cost $250 million and makes almost $2 billion at the box office to garner a sequel. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I just want to throw out that. No, it's quite impressive. No, this trailer, I liked it. I like the fact that, like you said, it's going in a more darker route. We know this from Rian Johnson's previous movies. If you've ever seen Brick or if you've ever seen Looper, the guy likes to go to some pretty dark places. So the fact that he's transitioning to a Disney film is just absolutely hilarious. But this trailer is everything I wanted it to be. It's a nice continuation of The Force Awakens. We're going to see a lot of stuff happen, and I mean a lot of stuff. Rian Johnson is currently the only director that Kathleen Kennedy has hired and has actually completed his movie. So whatever vision he had, they were okay with, and it seems like he's really going to bring a lot to the table. And also, I told Joel this on Wednesday, I'll say it here. Joel is correct. Everything we saw in that trailer is a misdirect. And Luke Skywalker himself tells the audience, he tells you to your face that this is a misdirect. Because he says a line in the trailer that's like, whatever you think is going to happen is not going to happen. And I believe that. I think that was Rian Johnson basically screaming out to us, when you go into this movie, don't expect the expected. This is going to be an unpredictable ride, and I'm going to take you for it. And I absolutely love that.
The proof of this is that we have absolutely, in this trailer and in the last one, no glimpse at Benicio del Toro.
Nope.
Who's supposed to play, or Laura Dern, but del Toro's supposed to play like the central villain of the movie. That's what I'm hearing, is that he's a major character. And, Laura Dern's a bit of a smaller one, but we don't see her. We don't get a glimpse of Kelly Marie Tran, who plays one of the main characters of the movie. She's going to be one of the new character, Rose, I think is her name. And we don't get a glimpse of her. It's the people that we know, minus of course Harrison Ford. And so there's a lot of stuff that has been hidden from us. People were worried because, they were like, well, is there going to be a bunch of spoilers? And clearly there are not, because we don't even get a glimpse at two major characters. And,
and you also you don't know the context of the scenes either, because like I was telling Joel, that last bit at the end, I don't even think that was real. Joel thinks it's two different scenes. I actually think it's a dream sequence. So I don't think what we're seeing is actually true. Like, there's going to be
it's either a dream sequence, or she's like talking to the ghost of Obi-Wan or somebody, and the whole, even like the most interesting thing to me is the surroundings of the line from Luke that you were talking about. The rain and the darkness, that's clearly a scene of great, there's a lot of fear going on there. And it's very interesting that, they included that glimpse, but I mean, it's just, there's so much hidden in this trailer, and I love that. Disney has been killing it with Star Wars marketing. They killed it with Rogue One, had excellent trailers for that. They had excellent trailers for Force Awakens. The behind-the-scenes stuff has been kind of rocky with some of their other movies, but you're right. Rian Johnson clearly, proved to them that he could fall within their parameters of storytelling and not, do a Phil Lord and Chris Miller thing. And it's just been very, very impressive. The marketing for this movie has, and so I can't wait, man. 2 months is going to go by really slowly now.
Well, Joel, don't think about it because there's plenty more on the horizon. And
yeah, that's true.
With The Last Jedi, you guys will be getting this too because this is how Disney works. They will always have their upcoming attractions attached to their films. We're probably going to see the first Han Solo teaser. So that will probably be
if that even still comes out in May. It's not.
Well, no, it was pushed to December.
Oh, that's right. It was. Yeah, I can't even keep up with this stuff anymore.
It just keeps changing throughout the week, and it's like, oh yeah, that was last week's news.
Yeah, it does.
We'll probably see it at first. Teaser. We'll probably get the title reveal, unless they want to go completely lazy with it and just call it Solo. So that trailer was great, and as a casual fan, I enjoyed it. I can't wait to see the continuation of it. This next one, oh my. Okay, if you thought the Luke Skywalker line in the trailer to The Last Jedi was an attention grabber of Rian Johnson going, hey, whatever you're about to see, it's going to be unpredictable. Warner Brothers, on the other hand, is having a cry for help. And this is my theory behind this. The Justice League trailer, which we've gotten 4 of them, by the way. Holy crap. This one and the last 2 of them, at the end of each trailer, Warner Brothers says, all in, November 17th. The all in phrase is not just a group metaphorical phrase for the Justice League coming together. All in is basically Warner Bros. Going, we're sinking everything into this. Please come to our movie so we can dictate how the future of our franchises are going to go. So their 4th trailer was released, and this trailer is the first one that we're getting a glimpse of kind of Joss Whedon's fingerprints on this film, because they, the story broke a couple months ago. They went back and did like some of the most expensive reshoots ever, and of course, you got to digitally remove that mustache from Henry Cavill. And then of course, Joss Whedon is completing the film for Zack Snyder after his tragic family thing that he's going through. So I don't know what it is with these trailers. I'm still looking forward to it. I know I can speak on behalf of Joel. He is still looking forward to it as well. But him and I both agree, and I'll let Joel talk about this one the most. This trailer is not good. And I just don't know if it's the overabundance of CGI, green screen madness that's happening. I don't know what it is about the movie, but something is just not clicking right. And I get that they're pushing Wonder Woman to the front now, considering how successful her movie was. But it just seems like, once again, Warner Brothers is just reactionary and doesn't really have a set plan on what they want to do. And that all-in phrase, I'm telling you, is a cry for desperate help for people to come to their movie. But you know what's really terrible right now? They do not have pre-sales. Thor Ragnarok had pre-sales for their movie 2 weeks ago. They still have 2 weeks left before it's even released. Justice League comes out 2 weeks later, and Warner Brothers doesn't have any sightings of pre-sale tickets so far. That's a bad sign that they're not confident in this. And hell, even The Last Jedi has pre-sales, and that's 2 months out. So this trailer is just, it's loud. Yes, some of the action sequences look fun. I still want to see this. I still have hope, because I still contend out of the 4 they've done so far, 3 of them are great. Suicide Squad is on a completely different spectrum of terrible. But I'm looking forward to see what they do, because this film will dictate how the future of this whole world goes. Because Joel and I just talked about it last week, they don't even want to be associated with tied universes anymore. They want to do their own separate things. But once again, if this film is successful, they're going to retract that statement and go, oh, we were just joking, we're doing a shared universe because this movie is successful. Because they are reactionary. They don't have a set plan. It's a leaderless section over there at Warner Brothers, and it just makes me mad because I want them to do well with this franchise. Justice League is going to have a lot to bring. It's the first time we're ever seeing this live action on the big screen. It's the first time we're ever seeing The Flash in a prominent role. Suicide Squad does not count. First time we're seeing Cyborg. First time we're seeing Aquaman in a prominent role. Once again, those cameos in BVS do not count. There's a lot that's going to come to play in terms of like new stuff to them. I want it to pan out, but this trailer does not do it. I don't see Joss Whedon's fingerprints all over this. Joel has a different take on it because we've already discussed this. So, Joel, take it away. Break down this fourth trailer of Justice League.
Well, I mean, we don't really disagree about the Joss Whedon thing. I think I saw a little bit of him in the last shot with Aquaman because he's having fun in the moment and he yells it out kind of with an exclamation. And I think that that's sort of a Whedon-esque moment, but everything else seems Zack Snyder all the way. They went through a bunch of reshoots. They recolorized the movie, and that somebody actually noticed that. There's this shot of Aquaman and Wonder Woman that was like gray and blue in one of the previous trailers. I think the Comic-Con trailer, and then now it's surrounded by a bunch of visual effects stuff, and it's red, and it's the same shot. And so I think that that's indicative that they really changed a lot about this movie, since Zack Snyder dropped out. But it's not a good trailer. The use of the Heroes cover was really lame. Use the real song, please. Or maybe just don't use the song. It's kind of been overplayed. Now I know that they kind of want to get on the David Bowie train after his death, but use a different song. It's just not a good trailer. I'm excited for the movie, like you said. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think anybody isn't looking forward to a Justice League movie. It's kind of a nerd dream come true, unless I guess the person wasn't a nerd about this stuff or anything in pop culture. Then I guess they'd be not interested. But nevertheless, I'm finding it hard to reconcile that with reality, which is that a Justice League movie is obviously something to look forward to, and clearly it is, but they just haven't found a way to make a good trailer. A trailer that convinces me that the movie is fun. And, whether the movie is fun or not is not the point. It's that it doesn't look fun. It looks like it's a chore. And this one is the same. I mean, I'm just waiting for the bit of news that this thing is like 3 hours long, and I don't know. I like long movies, but 3 hours for something like this, it just feels like it's coming because all the previous movies have been so long, much longer than Marvel movies in general, and except for Suicide Squad. And although even that one I think was more than 2 hours. So anyway, it's probably going to be super long. It doesn't look appealing in the trailers, and this is just the latest example of that. They need to get somebody who understands like how to build a trailer for this stuff. It's very depressing.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where like Joel and I are looking forward to it. It's gonna mark the 4-year anniversary for our show. And it's gonna be Joel. You realize how sad it's gonna be if the movie just is terrible, and we have to talk about it in our anniversary episode. It's like, oh god, it's like we're taking a risk on it, but it is what it is. I have full faith. I've always been on the Snyder train. The only one I've ever disliked from him is Sucker Punch. I actually think he's a great filmmaker. Watchmen is probably his opus. He's really good at what he does, but he gets a bad rap. I think unfairly, but he's definitely. He's a certain style of filmmaker. I get it. He's not for everyone, but whatever. All right. So this next trailer, because I'm super eager to talk about this with Joel. I will say this on air, and you guys can quote me on it. You can take it to my grave. As of right now, I actually think there are 2 sections of superhero content that are actually better than Disney Marvel. And Joel knows that I am a huge Disney Marvel fan, and I'm a big Warner Brothers DC fan for the most part. But I actually think, as of right now, 20th Century Fox, with 2 movies and a trailer to this one, has become my favorite superhero branch of content next to the Netflix series. I cannot believe whoever is doing this, 20th Century Fox, I commend you. You, or the board of people that are deciding this, you guys have the biggest gonads I've ever seen in my life. What am I talking about? First, it started with Deadpool. A huge risk. A humongous risk to make that content rated R. It was a success. They then turn around and do one of the best films of the year and make it a dark, gritty, R-rated film and stay true to the Wolverine character with Logan. Joel and I reported a couple weeks ago that the New Mutants was going to take more of a horror haunted house route. Okay, that sounds interesting on paper, but we need to see it in context. So we need to see actual footage. So the trailer, I cannot believe they just dropped this out of nowhere, but on Friday the 13th, I guess it makes sense considering what the movie's about. The New Mutants trailer dropped, and holy crap. First of all, what did we just see? It was, someone brought this up and like, it was, they're like, it's a mix of like X-Men and Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. And I'm just like, that's actually a great description. So the New Mutants is going to be what 20th Century Fox wants to jump out and do after the X-Men films that we have now. And the best way I can describe it is all the mutants are inside of this, giant house. They're being experimented on, and their powers are let loose. And we see minimal action. It's just more about tone and atmosphere of them trying to get out. And it's kind of horrific to see. It's almost like a hallucinatory dream. It was a bonkers trailer. I told Joel when I saw it that I honestly didn't know how to feel. But you know what? After seeing Logan and Deadpool, I have full confidence that not only will, one, this be a great film, two, it's going to be a different spin on the X-Men, even though the New Mutants is deemed as more of a sci-fi horror in the comics. But three, I will literally be behind anything besides Gambit. Unless they make that rated R, then I will actually give it a chance. Besides Gambit, I'm willing to give 20th Century Fox any benefit of the doubt to do whatever they want. Because the New Mutants looks crazy. It just looks amazing. Like, I can't believe they're taking the balls like this, Joel, to do this stuff. Is it going to be rated R or PG-13? I don't know. I don't know which way they're going to swing. Even if they make it PG-13, I feel like they're going to make it, they're going to push boundaries. And I want to see what Josh Boone does, the director of the film. He did The Fault in Our Stars, which I thought was a really kind of emotionally intense film about two young people in love. And I'm all down for this. It's got Anya Taylor-Joy in it, which I thought she gave a pretty great performance in Split. Of course, you got a little Game of Thrones in there with Maisie Williams. So, different, yes. Am I into it? I am now. So I can't wait to see it. It comes out in April, and it's going to be one of 3 20th Century Fox movies next year with this, Deadpool 2, and of course the Dark Phoenix movie. So, Joel, I don't know what it is, man, but when you have X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, I even love Apocalypse, Logan, Deadpool, these guys are on a roll to do something different, to stand out, and I think they're doing a great job. And I want to hear you talk about it, man, because you said you liked it, and I just want to hear the Joel spin on it. So, the New Mutants, man, what do you got?
Yeah, I did like it. I think it's interesting because you have two genres coming together here that wouldn't seem to go together. You have, on the one hand, it's a superhero movie, and it's clearly going to be a superhero movie. Whatever this trailer tells us, there's going to be a decisive choice that it's a superhero movie. But you also have, as unlikely as it seems, a horror movie. And it looks like an effective horror movie. But it's interesting because in this context, of course, the horror movie is going to be a fairly typical haunted house one where they're stalked by a killer, but it's also going to be about, superheroes, young superheroes finding their powers, and that's fairly typical, but putting them together is what makes this such a fascinating trailer. And so it's going to be interesting because I would love to be in the room where somebody said, hey, okay, let's sit down, let's talk the New Mutants. And then there's this 2-hour meeting where they discuss, maybe not 2 hours, but 30-minute, hour-long meeting where they discuss the points, and then somebody slips in at the last minute, just when they're all about to leave, and also let's make it a haunted house movie. Because I can just imagine, like, the look on the face of the executive who probably had to do a double take and then was like, okay, let's do it. Because it's the ballsiest thing I've ever heard of, putting these two genres together. You wouldn't think of doing this for this series. Well, really, for any superhero series, it seems odd to have a movie that is going to be part typical superhero movie, part typical kind of slash and kill or stalk and kill movie. But putting them together, it makes perfect sense because in this context, they can discover their powers. And they can kind of, unless, of course, the villain also has those powers or something is wacky here. And it's just fascinating. It's really a very interesting trailer. It's well edited. I like how they just call it the New Mutants. It doesn't have X-Men in the title. That's an interesting little decisive choice there. And it's a good one. It's a good one for sure.
I have to give props to Deadpool. Joel and I said this like when it came out, and of course he wasn't on the show yet. But I mean, we talked about it, and this movie's going to blow open many doors like this, where we're going to get R-rated Logans, where we're going to get haunted house X-Men movies. Like, I'm so glad that Deadpool did well because now we're going to get genre-bending superhero films that actually combine with other different genres. So Deadpool, congratulations, man. You made this happen, Ryan Reynolds, so thank you for that. So this next trailer, I just want to say before Joel gets into it, I like to, whenever I do the notes, I give Joel the most embarrassing things to talk about. So I actually gave this trailer to Joel because I want him to describe a trailer that literally has a scene of John Cena butt chugging alcohol through a funnel. So Joel, do you hate me yet, or is it more of like you're kind of frustrated with me and you'll get more angry later?
I quit. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm actually going to disappoint Chase by completely disregarding the scene in which John Cena butt chugs alcohol, because I'm trying to get over it. I'm trying to push it past myself. Block it from memory. Cock block it from memory. Okay, so
that was probably the best segue you've had all year, by the way.
Okay. This one is blockers, and I'm probably going to sound dejected while awkwardly laughing through this whole segment. Alright, so in this one, John Cena, Leslie Mann, and who is the other one?
Ike Barinholtz.
Ike Barinholtz, okay. I thought I recognized him, but I couldn't remember the name. So John Cena, Leslie Mann, and Ike Barinholtz, a.k.a. the three people that somebody decided to randomly draw out of a hat, come together because their daughters want to grow up and be adults. I'm sorry, what I mean is they want to go to prom and do things at prom that everybody who at least goes to public school does at prom. They want to, party and be given some sort of privacy. I'm sorry, they want to have sex. Oh no, it's terrible. They want to engage in the thing that they're going to engage in like 2 years later when they get married, or when they go to college. So they decide that they're going to stop them from having sex.
They're going to block them, Joel.
They're going to. Okay. Chase. All right. So they want to do this by stalking them and following them to their prom. And in the course of that, they almost crash their car. They butt chug alcohol. Um, I, I'm gonna go sit for 2 hours. All right, I'll see you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was really funny when I was creating the notes because I was like, Joel. Joel's the type of person when you talk to him, like you feel dumb because Joel is a very smart individual and like he's at least 10 times smarter than me. So when I saw this trailer, I was like, it's almost like giving a person that graduated from Harvard to read a poop joke, and that's exactly what I did. I gave Joel, who I worship and look up to basically describe a movie where John Cena butt chugs alcohol. So congratulations, Joel, you made it through without dying too much.
I'm dead. All right, so gonna move on. Actually, I really didn't even talk about the quality of the trailer. It was awful.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. So moving on from a terrible trailer to a pretty good one. Speaking of Anya Taylor-Joy,
just real fast. I just want to let everyone know that it's a terrible trailer. It's unfunny, and the hypocrisy of seeing your dad butt chug alcohol, but you won't let your daughter have sex, pretty much summarizes the entire thing. I actually love all three of these people. By the way, I think Ike Barinholtz is a funny dude. If you've ever seen like Neighbors, and he was really funny on like Mad TV, and he's actually in one of the movies I'm about to talk about later. Leslie Mann I've always enjoyed. John Cena's starting to become a favorite, but this looks like one of those like studio cash grab movies of a script that was thrown away in the trash can. An assistant stumbled upon the trash can, knocked it over, picked up the script, and handed it to a terrible producer. So there you go, Joel. Let's talk about the next trailer.
It's a trailer. All right, so our next one. Speaking of Anya Taylor-Joy, she's in this with Olivia Cooke, and it's called Thoroughbreds, which seems like a really interesting thing. Who's the other actor? Elijah Wood, right?
No, Anton Yelchin.
Oh, Anton. Oh, that's right. Because this is the one that I was thinking. Oh man, it's going to be really sad. The late Anton Yelchin. It's his last, I think. I think it's officially his last movie. And this one looks really interesting. They hire Elijah Wood to kind of do some illegal stuff. Let's just say, and it's interesting because I just watched a movie that I'm going to be reviewing for Dallas Movie Screenings in a couple weeks called Tragedy Girls. And they seem to be sort of in the same vein. That one was about these girls who are death obsessed. This one's this premise where they're kind of exerting control over this guy. And it looks really interesting to me. You don't get much of a sense of the plot here. Just the general premise, but it's really curious for sure. I think that I can't wait to see these actors together. Olivia Cooke was just about the only thing I liked in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. Anya Taylor-Joy is obviously a really big talent, and Anton Yelchin, R.I.P. man. That still stings. So it'll actually be Anton Yelchin's second movie after, I think second or third movie after his death. I guess Star Trek Beyond was technically the first one, and then he had Rememory this year, and now this. And I'm still sad. The guy was an enormous talent, and it was an interesting trailer for sure. Comes out next March, I think, right?
Yeah.
So like Blockers, zippity doo dah.
No, it's definitely a good trailer. It sets up like that kind of like almost borderline violent dark comedy edge where it's like you don't know if it's gonna be really serious or if it's gonna be like dark comedy, but that's kind of like the alluring nature about it. Where it's like, I'm getting into this because you're right. The talent involved is really great. Anton Yelchin, man, listen, I didn't really care for Rememory, but he was definitely one of the best parts. Also, really he's not a bad voice actor either. When I watched a few episodes of Troll Hunters, so the guy, he was gone too soon. Joel's right. He was one of the best in the business. I always enjoyed watching him. I still remember the first thing I ever saw him in, which was Alpha Dog, which was also kind of like a violent, almost borderline dark comedy. So, He's really good at
Yeah,
kind of...
I wasn't a fan of Alpha Dog, but he was great in it.
That's what I'm saying. Like he always like has his stamp in the movies he does. And you know what this movie kind of reminded me of, like tonal wise, Joel, was Green Room.
Yeah, there was sort of a Green Room vibe. Probably not going to be as violent, but
no.
certainly in that vein. So Chase, I'm just going to give it away that this next trailer, shockingly enough, is my favorite one of our show.
It is for me too, and it was one of the hardest ones to watch.
Yeah.
So this one, I don't even know how to jump into this. It's called Haze, and obviously it's about hazing in fraternities. And there's been a lot of movies that have been made on this subject matter. We just had Goat from last year with Nick Jonas, and so this is not one of those things that's ever kind of touched upon in a more dramatic sense. It's more for comedic effect, like you see in college movies. Party, alcohol, babes, and hijinks ensue. I get that. I'm a fan of those movies when they're done right. But when it's flipped on to reality, that's where it starts to crawl under your skin. Because at least with the comedies, I realize that they're goofy, they're fiction. I don't take them seriously. But when hazing is actually presented in a more dramatic and horrific light, that's what really kind of affects you. And the thing is, with this trailer, I thought it was a documentary at first. This is a fictional film that's played as a documentary, and that's what makes it even more disturbing, is the documentary feel to it. Because I never saw Goat from last year, but watching the trailer, I liked what I saw, but it was a fictional movie through and through. With this one, it has like that documentary aspect to it, to where it feels more grounded, it feels more disgusting to watch, and it really kind of affected me. I was like, especially in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein news and people abusing their power, it's like this film was a huge wake-up call into how people are hazed in fraternities. Like this isn't one of those things that people take seriously enough, because there are people that die from hazing. And it's like, how far would you go to be a part of this brotherhood? I've never understood the concept of fraternities, the fact that you got to pay to be in a group, and the fact that, these people abuse you to get in. It's like, I was never in a fraternity. I never liked the idea, ever. But people, that's important to people, and that's the only way for them to get friends and to be a part of something. And people abuse that, and they're just like, well, if you want to be a part of this group and be somebody, then we need to take you through the process. And this film just, like I said, delivers it in a more grounded light, a more disturbing light. And it was definitely, I'm gonna go ahead and say what Joel said, it's my favorite trailer of the week. I never would have expected it, but once I saw it, I was like, we have to talk about this. So this looks like probably one of the most eye-opening, kind of harrowing hazing movies that we're probably going to see, and I think it's important for people to watch it. So Joel, just take it away, man. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just echoing everything you said. That there was recently that case, I forgot where it took place, but somebody was hazed for so long that when they lost consciousness and died, nobody even noticed, because they weren't, they were more, concerned about the fact that they were hazing somebody than that person's wellness. And that person died. I forgot where it took place, but it just like a bunch of people were put on trial or something, and then it just, I don't know. I think it fell apart or something. The case fell apart. But you're so right. I mean, I would never have had any. If I went to a university that had these fraternities, I would never want to be a part of them, because it's just such a toxic environment. The idea that you have to join a group by doing things that risk your safety is just about the stupidest thing that has ever been conceived by human intelligence, or seeming human intelligence. And this is going to dip into sororities as well. We see, so it's which kind of is the same thing. It's pretty much the same environment, just shifted to women. It's just very, very, very terrifying. The trailer was incredibly well edited to make it look like not only just a documentary but kind of a horror film. In that, the second half, there's just a lot going on here where people dig themselves deeper and deeper into this horrible environment, and it's a great trailer. It's absolutely my favorite one. In terms of trailer construction, in terms of how it represents the movie, surprisingly enough, my favorite was not the Star Wars trailer, as good as it was. So, but of course, I mean, the close second was Blockers. The close second. That was one that was very, very valuable in making me realize that soon enough I'm gonna die, and that's a great thing.
Joel, you did not represent the movie properly. At the end of the Blockers trailer, there was a picture of a rooster, so it's called Rooster Blockers, right? It's supposed to be. It's meant for.
Yeah.
It's Rooster Is that what that is? Oh, I don't know. I don't get out often.
And by the way, just something I just found out. I might have to look up to see if it's on iTunes now. But Haze opened in limited release 2 days ago.
Oh man!
So yeah, it was just kind of timely that you found that.
Yeah, no, it was.
It's from Gravitas. It's from Gravitas Ventures, who usually puts their stuff on iTunes that's really small. So I'm hoping to be able to find that at some point.
It was because I'm subscribed to all the trailer outlets on YouTube, and so whenever I construct my notes or whatever, I just kind of look through the week and see which ones are worth talking about and whatnot. And of course, I do the big blockbusters for you guys, and I always try to pick like a couple small ones here and there if they're worth noting. And this one was just a punch in the face in all the right ways to kind of make you wake up about this thing going on. So that will be it for the trailers, guys. We just mentioned our favorite ones. So what about you guys? Please comment down below and let us know your favorite trailers and news pieces of the week. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, Joel, we got a busy section up ahead because we got 5 movies to review. Of course, you're doing 2 of them solo. I'm doing 2 of them solo. But first, let's get to the joint one that we're about to do, the one that we saw together on our lovely date. I actually enjoyed our date so much, Joel, that we get to hang out 2 more times this week. So
you just can't get enough.
I know. I can't get enough of the Joel. So the movie that we're going to be jointly reviewing is The Foreigner. Now, this one stars Jackie Chan, Pierce Brosnan, and directed by Martin Campbell. And Joel's going to tell you what this movie is about.
Yeah, Martin Campbell, by the way, not only did Casino Royale with Daniel Craig, that was a Bond movie. He also directed GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan. So this was an interesting little reunion for them. And it is the story. It sort of tells 2 stories, actually. Both of them are linked together, but it kind of tells 2 stories, or at least it has 2 co-leading actors who have like an equal amount of screen time between them. The one half is Jackie Chan, who plays a store owner named Kwan, whose daughter is killed in a terrorist attack that leaves a dozen dead in the midst of London. And so he decides that he's going to launch his own investigation. And unbeknownst to the people that he's investigating, he's a pretty capable guy in this regard, because he has possibly a military past. The other part of this is Pierce Brosnan, who plays the Deputy Minister of Northern Ireland, and he's a former member of the IRA, and the group that carried out the attack is calling themselves the Authentic IRA, which they seem to be possibly a branch of the official IRA, possibly a rogue cell, possibly a copycat group. They're not sure. And that's what's interesting about this movie, is that it kind of twists an expectation where from the trailer you think, okay, well, Jackie Chan's hunting down Pierce Brosnan. That's what it gives us the feeling of, and certainly that is part of the plot. But the interesting thing here is that both parties don't really know who carried out this attack. Jackie Chan certainly doesn't know, because he's just kind of an innocent bystander who loses, who turns out to be his only family left in the attack. And then Pierce Brosnan, possibly knows people may be involved in it, but really it's a thorn in his side. He's not sure. So the movie's about kind of two sides of an investigation, and then Jackie Chan plays this unknown variable in the midst of the attackers. And so the movie kind of splits its time between the investigation headed by Pierce Brosnan and the tracking down and trying to get the names of the bombers by Jackie Chan. It's quite effective. I was looking forward to this on the basis of seeing Jackie Chan in another big vehicle that utilized his strength. And I'm going to get into this in the positives, of course, in a minute after Chase gives his initial thoughts. But Jackie Chan is not exactly young, and that's a major positive in the context of this movie. So I quite liked it. I'm going to hand it over to Chase to give his initial thoughts.
Yeah, Joel and I are on the same page as this one. I liked it too. I think it's a very good film that's an extreme misdirect. Because when you see the advertising for this film, of course, they highlight Jackie Chan and his hand-to-hand combat abilities. But believe it or not, I know this is going to shock people, and I must warn you, if you're a Jackie Chan fan, that's fine. But this film is more of a drama thriller. There's 3 action sequences, if that, and you can definitely tell Jackie Chan's getting up there in age. I mean, it's not his fault. He is human. He's going to get older. But he only did 3 action scenes, and that just kind of shows you that, you know, when he's doing these movies, I'm sure his agents are like, listen, Jackie, try not to do as much because you have been hurt before, like, you know, so slow it down. But this is more of a drama thriller, and I only have like one negative, and believe it or not, someone actually called me out on my YouTube page, so I'll address that in just a second. But and I didn't know that. I'm an idiot. You know, that's okay. I make mistakes, but as far as the positives go, I think the biggest thing you could say about this film is Jackie Chan. He is the emotional heartbeat of this film. He brings like that desperation, that tenacity that you want to see in this person who has lost everything. He is lost in this world. He doesn't know what to do with himself, and you can see that pain and anguish on his face. He does a lot of facial acting in this movie. He barely has any lines of dialogue, and the line of dialogue he uses throughout is said like through 80% of the movie, so he doesn't really say much, and I think that is what's really effective about this movie, because you actually care about the characters more than you thought you would. So Jackie Chan is obviously the best part about this movie. He's just a man on a mission. He has nothing is getting in his way. He's got like I said, that tenacity to just go for it and get what he needs to get done to honor his daughter. Pierce Brosnan, some of the best work I've seen from him in years. I actually thought he was effective in the scenes that he was in. He provided this kind of menace and this kind of terror, underlying terror that you see in people that are portrayed in this movie. He also has weaknesses, which also portrays how, you know, leaders are essentially when they think it in a more Joel, what am I trying to say? Like, it's basically what Trump's doing, where it's like a dictatorship. So
yeah,
he feels like this dictator, but then when you get him down to his weakness, he really breaks down. And I thought he delivered that role very well. He's got some really great monologues that were really great. Overall, I think the direction and the writing of this film is very solid. It has like this suspenseful feel to it throughout. Martin Campbell does not let up. He really, puts you on the edge of your seat, and you have no idea where the movie's going to go, which makes it more fun to watch. I never felt like it dragged. I always just felt it had this alertness that it needed to for its intense scenes, and then it kind of slowed down when characters were talking with some really interesting, meaty dialogue. So I thought the balance between that was really well done. It's just a solid film. And to get into the action hand-to-hand sequences that were there were kind of impressive. There's one scene where Jackie Chan, you don't know the context of it, but he's sliding down a roof, and it's like, this man's in his 60s. What is he doing? So it was pretty impressive to watch that. And then I guess the other thing for positives for me, and Joel and I were talking about this because we obviously knew the connection. Now, I know you guys don't like when Joel and I get political because this is a movie show. I get that, but for this film, you have to address it. This is based off previous material. So this book was written years ago. when Trump wasn't even in the running for presidency. But this movie does have a very dark and disturbing kind of connection to white supremacy, and kind of how it's portrayed. Because in the movie, like Joel said, Pierce Brosnan's character was a form of the IRA, which is kind of like white supremacy here in America, where they think they're doing good all the time, but they're obviously a hate group and they're terrorists and whatnot. He was a part of that group, and now he's in office and all that stuff. So there's a lot of mirroring between, how terrorism is used for political gain and how that's disturbingly fitting now. So, I'm not getting into what Joel and I think about the White House. You guys know what we think about, but it is very disturbing how this movie does mirror today's times. And I thought, the source material captured that, wonderfully and stuff. And it just, it adds that extra element of that type of thrill you need for this movie. So you're probably thinking, like, what's your one complaint? And I'm going to sound stupid when I say it, but it is something that needs to be addressed, because it's a huge part of characters that decide to put on accents. So I will address it when I get to the negatives. But overall, I like everything else. The music was interesting. It was like half asleep techno, which is not a bad thing. It's different, but it's scored by Cliff Martinez, who has brought us some of the most iconic pieces of scores in film history. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Joel, what about the positives that really struck you the most?
Well, yeah, the one thing about the political angle there is that there's a major globalist kind of there's sort of globalist advocacy here, like in a quiet way, because we get this bigoted group being outsmarted by, as they refer to him, like repeatedly throughout, the Chinaman, in this very racist kind of way. It's absolutely, very accurate to say that it's sort of a statement on that, in that, he's come in, he's kind of disrupting their plans, he's, laying waste to the whole ideology of the IRA in the process, and it's very clever. Not a huge, gigantic part of the movie, I don't think, but it is a very clever little. It's certainly a jab at the ideals that brought Trump to the office. Certainly through this context of the IRA. But the big positive is Jackie Chan. It's a good performance, both when he's having to be the grieving father, which I think he sells by, like you said, he doesn't speak a whole lot. A lot of it's very expression. It's expressive, I should say. When he's like fighting or exacting revenge in some other way, like through, meticulous science or whatever, trying to set up situations, there's this sadness in his face that's very convincing. And then when you get to the fight scenes, I mean, it's just very clear that this is not, the wacky, invincible character that Jackie Chan usually plays. He jumps between staircases and he staggers a bit. He, as you said, he slides down the roof and it shakes him. I mean, he doesn't quite, recover from that immediately as he might have before. He gets injured here and it takes its toll. And I mean, it's a really good performance because they're using his age. He's a 63-year-old playing a 61-year-old, and you can feel that here. But it's a good performance, and segueing into the action scenes, they're really impressive. I think that Martin Campbell has proven before, maybe not with Green Lantern, but with other movies, that he's able to stage this kind of hand-to-hand stuff in a way that it isn't shaky or jittery or anything like that. It has a mind for geography. It has a mind for choreography as well, and it's really effective, and it's the big part of the movie that works, and it's kind of the most important thing. It's the most important aspect to the screenplay by David Marconi, that we follow the Chan character as he's, exacting his revenge through wits or through strength or just through sheer willpower. The other part of it is the story involving Brosnan. I think he's effective enough. I did like his performance as it stands with the character. The nature of his arc is a bit predictable, just because, with a character like this, we're going to be able to, know, where that goes. It's going to be pretty obvious. We've seen this stuff before, but it's a good performance. He really digs into that accent. He really does, and I'll let you get to that later on. But he really does. He treats it like it's a steak, and he's just
munching on that fat.
He's just munching on that steak. It's one of those things where he's chewing the scenery. He doesn't technically need to, because characters who chew the scenery are generally like third, like Snape in the Harry Potter franchise isn't one of the main characters, but Alan Rickman chewed the scenery, and also did that as the villain in Die Hard. Here, Brosnan didn't really need to, but he does, and it's pretty good. It's a fun performance. I really like the cinematography in this movie. Stylish, a lot of dark colors that I thought it was really effective. I didn't really mention that in my review that I wrote, but it's neat, like atmospheric cinematography. And those are pretty much my positives. Chan and the like you said, the globalist kind of idealism here that pervades the underneath the surface of the movie, I guess. It's an effective movie for sure.
Yeah, it was one of those movies where, like, Joel and I knew what we were getting ourselves into. It's a Jackie Chan movie, and we're like, oh, it could be at least fun, but we were actually taken back on how smart it was, and I was like,
yeah, it's genuinely telling a fascinating story.
Correct.
While being an effective action picture, and its ultimate, appeal rests in the action, I think, but it does more than that, and it's always nice to have a little more than that. So, for sure, yeah. All right, so get into your negatives a little bit. Your negative, I guess.
Okay, so I told Joel this when we left, and it is a huge problem in movies because it can be very distracting. Our accents, and I realize that some actors are better than others. I did not know this, but Pierce Brosnan is actually from Ireland. He naturally has an Irish accent. I did not know that. I still don't think it's an excuse, because alluding to what Joel said, his accent is pretty rough. Now, that also could be my fault, because I'm not accustomed to hearing him like that. But it sounded like he was trying so hard to be Irish that it just came across as a person to imitate an Irish accent. It can get pretty distracting, especially there's a crucial scene in the beginning of the film where he kind of reveals his plan, and I couldn't help but notice some of the inconsistencies in the accent, and I was like, is he actually from Ireland? I couldn't really tell, and so and then I posted my review, and then someone down below pretty much, slapped me in the face, which is fine. I need to be corrected when I'm wrong. But this person alluded to that Pierce Brosnan is from the Republic of Ireland, and his character in the movie is from Northern Ireland, and they're completely different accents. I didn't know that because I am, I'm from America, and we're ignorant on stuff. No, I want to learn about this stuff, and so I didn't know that, and so when you look it up, this person's right. It's kind of like how in America, how we have different accents where people are from. Like in the Deep South, Joel and I both know, since we're in the Deep South, people have that kind of Southern, kind of glossy draw to their accent versus up north where they're kind of have that Boston, New York accent. So
even in the South, there are different accents, because like somebody who is from the deep like backwoods of Texas doesn't sound like somebody from the deep backwoods of Georgia or the deep backwoods of Missouri, which is technically the South.
Exactly. So I mean, I'm very well aware that now that I am that Pierce Brosnan is from Ireland, because Joel and I looked that up, but I didn't know he was from a different part and they have different accents. I should have known better, so I apologize in my review for being ignorant, but I learned. But I still think it is a negative, because when he's trying to deliver a good monologue, that accent can be, like I said, distracting sometimes. That's my only negative. Joel, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, here's the important thing about the performance is not the facts of, I guess it's slightly important that the characters from Northern Ireland, the more important thing is that Pierce Brosnan give a believable performance. I think that it sometimes stutters because of that. I think he's trying too hard. And so the problem with the accent isn't that he digs into it so much, as it just doesn't come across as authentic. And in the moment with this very serious plot, it can sometimes kind of be unintentionally funny. So of course I applaud him, being an Irish actor, taking on a different Irish dialect, but nevertheless, it's a bit of a drawback sometimes. It's like you said, when he's trying to be threatening, for instance, it just doesn't really work because it sounds like such a put on. And so that would be one of my negatives. And the other one isn't really a negative so much as a caveat. It's the fact that we have seen this before. The general trajectory of the plot, beyond the specifics of it, is fairly typical of this genre. So it's not stretching or in any real way, but it is a bit predictable that, for instance, Jackie Chan might probably save the day somehow. How he does that is not predictable, but nevertheless, the general trajectory of the plot is something we've seen before. It's basically a Taken movie. It's just, a different kind of setting and different stakes. But it's very much in the Taken vein, so you won't be stretching to see some great work of cinema, but it's a fun involving movie. And so I guess that's my final thoughts.
I know it's really kind of hard to because we're nitpicking at this point, because I think overall it's just a fun and sometimes very heartbreaking kind of theater experience, and that's what we go to the movies for. We want to go escape, and I think it was a perfect example of escapism in cinema. And that's my final thoughts. I'm gonna give it a B. So
yeah, I'm gonna give it a B as well.
Yeah, so it's a solid film. So yeah, I'm sorry that we couldn't really commentate on more, but our positives definitely outweigh the negatives in this scenario. So let's move on to the mystery review, guys. I'm really excited because of course Joel and I know what we're talking about because we hand each other the notes, but you guys do not know. So get ready. It's Joel's turn, and he's going to spin you his first mystery review, which I should probably point out, all four of these movies that we're about to talk about, I've seen all four. So I will basically tell you if I liked it, hated it, or whatever after Joel gets done talking about it, but I won't go into it because you can go to my YouTube page if you want to know full thoughts. But Joel, what is the first mystery review you're going to be doing?
My first one, and I'm actually going to just kind of semi-spoiler here, I had a good weekend at the movies. I liked all three of the movies that I reviewed at joelonfilm.com. So the next one is going to be Marshall. This one is the newest film from director Reginald Hudlin. And it's interesting because he was in charge of the House Party franchise back in the 90s, and now he's directing this very serious movie that taps into some of the kind of the stuff going on today, and it tells the story of Thurgood Marshall, who was the first Supreme Court justice to be African American. Except that this isn't the story of how he became that. It's actually very interesting, and I'm probably going to get a bit of pushback from this. But I'm going to say that there are a lot of movies right now that sort of regard the black characters in the story by their relationship to white people in that story. And it's a bit of a lazy bit of storytelling, and it's what this movie does, technically. But I actually don't think it's as simple as that, and I'm going to say that I quite like this because of the reason that will probably be rather controversial about this movie. So this one tells of a very specific chapter in the life of Thurgood Marshall, and it's really before he became this household name. It kind of sort of began here where he was second chair in a trial, and the trial was a rape that took place in 1941, or supposedly took place, I should say, in 1941, when a socialite named Eleanor Strubing accused her driver of raping her and throwing her off of a bridge. And so Thurgood Marshall kind of is a member of the NAACP in that period of time, and he comes in to help with the case alongside a man named Sam Friedman, who was an insurance lawyer, completely unprepared for this case, but because of the judge's racism in the trial, he's the one that heads it up. So we have this story here that kind of takes on the structure, not the tone, and that's important, but the structure of kind of this buddy comedy, where you have the two, they go and investigate the case. They talk about it. It's resolutely dramatic, and I'm not saying it's a comedy, but it's the structure of this kind of buddy movie where each of them is defined sort of by their relationship with the other one. And so there's sort of this emotional and thematic logic to the choice of telling this story semi-primarily from the point of view of Sam Friedman rather than Thurgood Marshall, because this is a movie about taking the power back. And so what Reginald Hudlin is doing is he's telling the story from this point of view because he's trying to make the point that even the giants in some field of work have to start somewhere. And for Thurgood Marshall, kind of the first building blocks to him becoming this household name, who was he was the first Supreme Court justice, like I said, to be black. He was he fought for clients who were wrongfully convicted simply because of their race. The film tells us all of that in a coda. The story of the film is this very specific chapter, and in that chapter, we get a sense of the man. And he's played by Chadwick Boseman. This is the third performance from him in which he plays an African American of some level of fame. He played Jackie Robinson in 42, and he played James Brown in Get On Up. I wasn't a particularly big fan of either of those movies, although I liked him in them. And here he offers his best work in that vein yet. It's he plays him with resolve and with maturity, and it's a really good performance. And what surrounds him is this very complex story of privilege on the part of Sam Friedman, who I thought was played by Josh Gad, who I thought was really good here. And he's able to kind of grasp the prejudice that's placed upon Marshall on his own terms, rather than this white character remaining aloof to the whole thing. We have this white character who grows. He kind of understands a bit about slur-based prejudice by being called a Jewish slur, and he gets beat up in the process of this movie for, you know, representing a case with a black man. And it's a really effective, it's a broad telling of the story for sure. There's obviously nuances here that get lost in the storytelling of a movie, but nevertheless, I was really impressed by them, and I liked Kate Hudson quite a bit as the socialite claiming rape. I liked Sterling K. Brown as the defendant in the trial, Joseph Spell. I thought that Dan Stevens had a lot of fun as this really like slimy opposing counsel who basically doesn't really even veil his racism, but he's having to kind of keep it close to the chest, almost, in that, he's an acting member of court and he can't, call a black person a certain word in the court, but he might as well be here. And, there's the moment where he asks Kate Hudson to clarify, which black man she's talking about, and the only other black man that she could be talking about in that context is Thurgood Marshall. It's a hair-raising moment. I also thought that James Cromwell did solid work as the judge. So it's mostly a movie about the performances and about the story that it's telling and about this kind of structure that it takes on. And in that vein, I thought it was really it was thoughtful and well performed. It's not some overwhelming success. The production of the movie is fairly standard. It's got, believable costumes, Honey Glade's cinematography, but it's a good, thoughtful movie, and I'm going to give Marshall a B. The second movie that I'm going to review for you guys or the third, I guess, is The Meyerowitz Stories, New and Selected. This comes from Netflix, and it's the new film from director Noah Baumbach. I think this is the fourth movie from him that I've seen. I've seen everything since Frances Ha, and this might be the strongest of those four. They're all kind of on the same level of ratings, but I think that this might be my favorite of them. And it doesn't really tell a story so much, but there is a bit of one here in that the family at the center, the Meyerowitzes, are coming together because the mother's about to go out of the country and is selling off some of the keepsakes, and then the father has a health scare, and they've got to potentially talk about, without giving anything away, they got to potentially talk about what to do if he dies. So the big thing about this movie that's a positive is the cast. I think that this is one of the most impeccably acted movies of the year. It's got Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler as half-brothers, which is such a perfect fit. Like, how come nobody thought of this before now? I mean, not even as just half-brothers, just brothers. Like, somebody needed to do this. But in any case, they play half-brothers. They haven't talked in a while. They're not really on great terms. And neither of them is on particularly great terms with their father, who's played by Dustin Hoffman. He's on his fourth or fifth marriage, and his new wife is played by Emma Thompson. They also have a sister who kind of disappears into the background, but she's played by Elizabeth Marvel, who you'll probably recognize, but her name's not really familiar yet. In any case, Sandler's character has been recently divorced, and he's sending his daughter off to college. And Stiller's character, his marriage is on the rocks to the degree that, his 5-year-old son is starting to use the methods that his mom uses to get the Ben Stiller character off the phone. And so they're kind of repeating the sins of their father here, in many ways, because while he has his health scare with possible brain cancer, Sandler's got this problem with his hip that he's ignoring. And his father ignored headaches. So you got this little dynamic here of kind of this idea that since the father ignored it, the son just thinks, well, it's okay to ignore it. It won't bother me. And that ends up not being the case. And this is a movie sometimes of pretty harsh truths in that way. and it's primarily a dramedy, and it's a good one. It's not exactly stretching in terms of like filmmaking. You know, the cinematography from Robbie Ryan's pretty quiet. There's not a lot of beautiful shots or whatever. It captures New York with kind of this general sense rather than actually capturing New York with a visual sense. It's just kind of the backdrop of the story. But it's all about the screenplay. I think Baumbach is able to have sympathy with characters who find themselves difficult to sympathize with, and that's quite the achievement. I think that it's also summed up in this really like striking single moment, and it's kind of hard to talk about it without giving away context. But I will say that at some point, Adam Sandler's character is visiting a retrospective hosted by a friend of the Dustin Hoffman character. And during the party, he meets with an old family friend that he hadn't seen in a while. And, this is a point in his life where he doesn't really know what he's doing or where he's going. And there's this brief moment where the father runs off because he wants to leave. And the friend is distracted by another person at the party. And Adam Sandler's kind of stranded for a few seconds in the middle between them. And he looks kind of back and forth. He doesn't really know what to do. And then he basically searches for the nearest path of exit. And it kind of sums up the whole vibe of the movie, which is that these are characters in transitional periods of their lives. They don't know what's in store for them in the future because it's so uncertain. They don't want to look at the past because it's so painful. And, that's kind of life. It's 100% hindsight all the way. We keep looking back, and sometimes it's probably not great for our mental health, but we do it because it's unavoidable. And that's what this movie's kind of about. And in that vein, I thought it was quite effective. So I am also giving, it's kind of a B weekend, basically. I'm also giving the Meyerowitz Stories New and Selected a B. So those are the two movie reviews that I have for you guys, and I hope you all enjoyed that for sure. So
yeah, I agree with you on Marshall. I agree with B. Thought it was solid. Meyerowitz Stories I thought was fine, but the Adam Sandler performance was just so good because that bar he has set for us for the past 2 years was easy to hop over, but I mean he did it, and he did it in spades. So I would give the Meyerowitz Stories New and Selected a C+. If you want to know my full thoughts on both of them, YouTube page, you can go check those out. Guys, it is my turn. So, yeah, my two are going to be so far apart tonally, it's going to be insane. All right, so the first one I'm going to do, I don't think you guys have probably even heard about this. This one kind of flew under the radar, and I received the invite for it, and I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And this one's called Mark Felt, the Man Who Brought Down the White House. Now, this one stars Liam Neeson as Mark Felt, and he is the main proponent behind Watergate and taking down Nixon and his administration. I was looking forward to it. I always love political espionage and intrigue, which is funny. I say that because this is a fictional movie about real-life events, and I treat it as a fictional piece of property, even though it happened in real life, and it's quite disturbing on how real this stuff can get. But I was looking forward to it. One of my favorite shows right now, currently ongoing, is House of Cards. So I'm always down for it. Liam Neeson. I mean, come on. I mean, I will watch anything that guy's in. I will give anything a shot. I gave this one a shot, and it's below average. And I think the main issue with this film, and it's actually not even the acting, which is funny we brought up Blockers, because I had no idea Ike Barinholtz was in this movie. He is in this, and he shows up, and I'm like, wow, one of the goofiest guys I've ever seen in comedy, and who is quite funny when he hits, is in this movie that is about as dramatic and is about as serious as it can get. So that was kind of funny. The performances are not the problem. Everyone brings their A game, and everyone captures their monologues in these pieces of dialogue in the script, and they deliver it in the best way they can to really make you feel like you're watching this like epic, suspenseful political thriller. There are two main issues with the film. One of which is that Watergate was a humongous scandal. This is an ongoing thing that was for years Like, this wasn't something that happened overnight and was solved within a week. This was an ongoing thing that had many parts to it, a lot of pieces to the puzzle, right? So the film approaches it this way. And this film's only an hour and 40 minutes, by the way, so that should tell you something. Everything is rushed. Everything that happens in the movie is just a revelation segment and then moves on to the next thing. So Mark Felt might have some new intel on Nixon. Oh, cool, I found this intel. Next scene, jump to him telling the reporter, that's really cool, I'm going to put it in the paper. Next scene, I'm putting it in the paper, and then it'll jump like 2 years or 3 years or 3 months, and like, I found another revelation. It's like, there was nothing about this film allowed anything to breathe. It was just more like, all right, we got to show all the pieces of the puzzle before we get to the conclusion, which even when the conclusion was met, and we know how this all ends, but even when it was met, it just seemed very like just forced and lazy, and it was like, oh, they realized that they found something. That's cool. Moving on. And so nothing was allowed to have any type of impact to make you feel like you're watching something important. It was just more of like a Cliff Notes type of version of Watergate and just how that was presented. So I just thought it was a completely just rushed movie with no actual substance to it, which is actually complimentary to the cinematography because it's cold as hell. It's just gray, it's bleak, it's bland, and it just has no type of personality to it, and it just has like this gray tonal feel to it, and it has no sense of identity. And so that also, goes with the no sense of identity to the storytelling and just showing you, a Cliff Notes version of it. And the second big issue I had was there's a subplot, a literal subplot that takes away from the movie and almost puts the movie at a halt. And what do I mean by that? Because no one's going to see this movie. Is that Mark Felt and his wife, played by Diane Lane, which is not even in the movie that much, they're trying to look for their daughter. Why? This movie's about one of the biggest scandals in history, and you're going to sideline a B-plot to them finding their daughter. Like, you'll have the movie going for a couple scenes, right, where, like, we'll have Liam Neeson inside of a diner talking to Bruce Greenwood, who's a reporter, and it's like this intriguing, intelligent conversation about how they're going to take Nixon down. The next scene, oh, Diane Lane, we got to go find her daughter. I mean, she's just missing, we got to go find her. She's like a lost dog, and it's like, why? Why are we cutting to this? It makes no sense, and I get it. The director wants to try to show and establish a little bit of life outside of the White House for this character so we can connect to him a bit more, but it seemed like just an intrusive side plot that we didn't need. And they even have like a part in the movie where like they go find her and they meet up with her and like they have a conversation like, why is this in here? Like, I don't care about this. I would rather have Mark Felt be betrayed in the White House, at his desk, at his job for the entire movie, rather than see his home life. If you want to have him go talk to his wife every now and then, that's fine. But why search for his daughter? That made no sense to me. The best part about this movie is not even the acting, is actually the music. I thought the music provided like this unsettling, horrific type of vibe to it, which is perfect because Watergate is pretty horrific when you think about how corrupt politics are, and how corrupt the White House is. It kind of reminded me of the score from Logan, where it was like, when I was watching Logan, I didn't expect the score to be like this experimental horror type of vibe to it, but it fit for that movie, and it fits for this one as well. So believe it or not, the score is actually my favorite part, but I think everything else is below average. I think there's a lot of distractions, and I think there's a lot of unfocus and a lot of style to this when it could have been something as intriguing as a House of Cards. Look at House of Cards, where that movie is literally nothing but like dialogue and talking inside of a White House, but you have powerhouse performances, you have sharp, interesting dialogue, you actually have gorgeous cinematography and colors that you would never expect from that type of show. That's why that show works, because it takes something like that and elevates it to something. I felt like there was no care into this, and no one tried to elevate it to anything, but the actors were trying their hardest. I'm going to give Mark Felt, the man who brought down the White House, a C-. So there you go with that one. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give it a higher grade. You would probably never expect it, but is Happy Death Day. Now, this one is one of the bigger releases next to The Foreigner that came out this weekend, and I saw it, and not gonna lie, kind of enjoyed myself. So let me explain. So the movie kind of centers around this woman who wakes up in a bed. She goes throughout her day, she gets killed, and then she wakes up in that bed and repeats the same day. So it's basically Groundhog Day with a serial killer. I will say that the biggest draw of the film is the actual concept of the Groundhog Day effect. It can provide for some interesting kills in the horror genre, provide for some interesting laughs in the comedy genre, and then also provide some interesting dramatic moments that you could relive over and over again. I thought the actual concept was a great hook, but ultimately when the movie's done, it becomes a gimmick and really doesn't make much sense for the movie, which kind of irritated me because the way it ended, I was like, are we going to explain anything? Nope. Okay, whatever. And even revealing the killer was kind of like, it deflated the movie a little bit. I think the most fun aspect about the film is the actual process of finding the killer and just seeing how she's dying and how she just becomes more panicked each time and trying to figure it out and whatnot. That's where the entertainment lies. This is not going to win any Oscars. This is not like, some profound picture. It's just not. But you guys have to keep in mind, when we are littered in a year that is filled with the Bye Bye Man and Friend Request, this movie looks like The Godfather compared to them. So it's not a great movie by any means, but the concept alone is enough to hook you, and it can provide for some interesting sequences, but that's as far as you're going to go. I do actually like the performances. They're actually pretty good for a horror film. There's even one scene in particular where this character is, kind of talking to her dad, and I was like, wow, they're actually trying. Because the thing with the Groundhog Day effect, the whole point of the movie is to have a character who changes throughout, and becomes a better person. I get that. And, I thought the main actress did a pretty good job because the first 10 minutes, she's unbearable. I hate to say it, but she's a bitch. She's basically like a mean girl from Mean Girls, and it's like, am I supposed to follow this person around? Like, she's a terrible person. So as the movie progresses, she starts to learn, her mistakes and like why she is the way she is, and she becomes a little bit more loving towards people. And I did like that quite a bit, but like I said, I think ultimately where this movie falls apart is its actual concept. It's gimmicky and it really doesn't make much sense. But I will say, as a pure like entertainment piece, it's not bad. And if you wanted to go watch a horror movie and drown your sorrows, I guess, then this is the one for you. If I had to pick one, I didn't see it, but if I had to pick a PG-13 horror film that you see, don't see Flatliners. Go see this one, because at least this one can provide for some interesting, fun moments. Nothing really more to say. It's from my boy Jason Blum from Blumhouse Productions. Not his strongest work, but it's passable. It's entertaining enough. I'm going to give Happy Death Day a B-. So, so that pretty much runs the gamut on our mystery reviews. So yeah, what about you guys though? I don't care what Joel has to say, and Joel doesn't care what I have to say, but we want to know what you guys have to say. Please comment down below and let us know what movies you saw this weekend, because there was a lot. Not only were these 5 that came out this weekend, we also had a show on Netflix. We also had a movie on Netflix. This was just a stacked weekend, folks, but we are progressing towards, bigger and better movies, and we'll reveal our, next week's episode for sure. But before we get into that, let's get into the box office results, and since it was my week to do the notes, it is Joel's week to guess. And Joel, I hate to break it to you, but you have a lot of movies that came out this weekend, so the hints I will tell you, which this is going to confuse Joel even more. You have the movies that came out this weekend: Happy Death Day, The Foreigner, Marshall, Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman. Smaller films, you have Goodbye Christopher Robin, Breathe, Mark Felt, and that's pretty much it. So there you go. I decided to throw a wrench in your guessing. So Joel, would you like to even try to attempt what the top 5 are?
Good Lord. All right. So let's say by default that number 1 is Happy Death Day, just because. I don't know why. I don't know why I guessed it like that, but just because, I'm just gonna say by default number 1, Happy Death Day. Number 2, Blade Runner. Number 3, The Foreigner. Number 4, I'm for some reason gonna say. Wait, hold on. No, I'm sorry. Okay, so all right, where was I? Happy Death Day, Blade Runner, 2049, The Foreigner, It. And I'm gonna say that My Little Pony is number 5.
Okay, so this is probably the closest Joel has ever gotten. He got 4 out of 5 correct. So if you would have swapped out My Little Pony for number 5 is The Mountain Between Us, you would have had a perfect run.
You know, I almost went with that, but for some reason I felt like maybe The Mountain Between Us wouldn't drop a whole lot, but it would be one of those things that, you know, the My Little Pony would kind of get in based on the fact that it's a kids movie. So I almost said The Mountain Between Us, in which case I should have, but.
I mean, it's actually pretty impressive because My Little Pony came in at number 9 and it dropped 55%. Mountain Between Us only dropped 46%. So I mean, I've been hearing it's a whatever movie, but people seem to like it. So number 5 is that one with 5.6 million right now on its budget of 35 million. It's racked up a total of 20 million domestically and 30 million worldwide. It probably needs to make about 80, 85. 90, I'm just guessing to break even. So yeah, sorry Idris Elba, it's just not working out for you. But don't worry, you're going to be in Thor in a couple weeks. It's okay, buddy. Number 4 is It with 6 million. This thing just keeps on trucking. It only dropped 39%. Just to let you guys know, it's been out for 6 weeks. Its budget, I just love reading these numbers. 35 million, an easy, cool 35 million. Doubling that with PA marketing, I'm going to say a cool 100 million to break even. Oh man, look at this. Worldwide, get this, Joel, it's at 630. So this movie just keeps trucking along, and Joel and I already predicted this. It became a huge hit in September. It's going to carry over into Halloween. It's going to have a surplus in a couple weeks when Jigsaw comes out, so get ready. It's just going to get more money. Number 3 is The Foreigner with 12.8 million. Not bad for a Jackie Chan movie, especially here in the States. Its budget is 35 million, and of course doubling that in marketing stuff. We're going to say 80, 90 to break even. Worldwide, opening weekend, 101. So it actually surpassed its mark, and you want to know why? We forgot to mention this in our review. This movie's half financed by China. And there's actually 4 production companies in China that are in the beginning of this film, which is funny.
Like because H Brothers and like a bunch of other ones.
There were so we sat through all of them, and I laughed at the 4th one because there was that joke in Family Guy where Peter said something like, "This is just as confusing as opening sequences to movies that you think are the movie, but they're the production logos." And he sat in the theater, and like it would have like, you know, Fox and like, you know, I don't know, like Entertainment Pictures, and then they would have like this sequence of a guy running from a plane or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, this movie's looking pretty good," and the production logo. Like that's exactly how the movie was. It just kept going with production companies, but yeah. So it actually did very, very well opening weekend. But Jackie Chan is a worldwide name, so you know he's going to kill in the foreign territories. So that's not that's not shocking. Number 2 is Blade Runner. And it dropped 53%. It only made 15 million this weekend, which is very bad for this movie because the budget's 150. Doubling that, I wouldn't be surprised if they had to make anywhere from 450 to 500 million to break even, and it's only made 158 worldwide. Alcon, close your doors, fam. It ain't working out for you. I'm sorry. Number 1 is Blade Runner 2049 got beat out by Happy Death Day with 26.5 million, which is actually pretty good considering how much Flatliners made a couple weeks ago. Its budget, get this. This is why I love Jason Blum. Regardless of what you think of his movies, he is one of the most brilliant businessmen in Hollywood right now. Its budget is 4.8 million, and it made 31 million worldwide, which means it not only did it surpass its budget, it surpassed the theater cut, it surpassed the marketing, and it went into the green twofold. Like, I want you to keep that in perspective. Like, it made so much profit that it could literally bomb next weekend, and they're already dancing in the streets. Like, it's just insane, like how Jason Blum does his movies. Get Out, for instance, costs a cool $5 million. I think it made like almost $200 million worldwide. So this is a guy behind the Paranormal franchise. This is a guy behind the Insidious franchise. He knows how to market movies. The guy is a genius. And like I told you, Happy Death Day is not his best work, but it's fine. It's entertaining enough. So that is it for the box office results, guys. I guess since Joel does it, I will do it as well. There are a couple big upticks in terms of percentages. But before I get into that, Marshall came in at number 11 with $3 million. Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman, which I've been hearing great things about, came in at number 14 with $737,000. Goodbye Christopher Robin came in at number 32nd with $55,000.
Whoa!
Joel, it gets worse. Number 38 was Breathe with $26,000. Yeah, so that's pretty bad for everything. The upticks, get this. Even though I didn't really care for it, Mark Felt jumped up 106% and made $123,000 this weekend. Still not good considering it's only made $257,000 total so far. Loving Vincent, the all-painted movie, jumped up 90%, came in at number 18 with $319,000. And then this is actually a great segue into what we're talking about next week. The Florida Project came in at number 16 with an uptick of 154% with $400,000, which is great because that will do it for this week's episode of 203. But next week for 204, speaking of that movie and what could possibly be the worst movie of the year so far, because believe it or not, I've been following the reviews for both of these movies, Joel, before you introduce them. One's being praised as one of the best films of the year, and one of them is being portrayed as one of the worst films of the year with one of the most hilariously bad sex scenes in the film this year. So, Joel, what are we doing for next week?
Next week is going to be The Florida Project, which is a new film from Sean Baker, and it's from A24, and also The Snowman from director Tomas Alfredson, however you say that, of Let the Right One In and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Yeah, I definitely know which ones you're talking about. The Snowman reviews are just baffling considering the power behind them, but I'll be interested to see for myself on Wednesday.
Yeah, we are seeing The Florida Project tomorrow as the time of this recording. Snowman on Wednesday, so that will be next week's show, guys. It should be quite fun. And, of course, it is Joel's episode to do the notes, so if he wants to throw in some more mystery mini reviews, then he can do that as well. It is up to him. But those will be the two main for top conversation. I have a feeling we're probably going to love one. I have a feeling we're either going to be lukewarm on one / kind of hate it. So next week's episode will be probably a lot of praise and a lot of bashing. So I cannot wait. It'll be a lot of fun. So that will do it for 203, guys. But before we wrap up, Joel, where can the people find you online?
You can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. I reviewed all 3 movies that I discussed this weekend. And I've got only more coming up. It's amazing because another place you can find my writing is DallasMovieScreenings.com. Chase, October has ruled. It's been amazing because I reviewed, of course, The Foreigner. I joint reviewed with you. I did a couple of documentaries. I've got The Florida Project and The Snowman. Just an FYI to people, I generally do a lot of screeners, like online screeners, for Dallas movie screenings if I do them, just because the trek to Dallas is hard and it's unpredictable with my job. But it turns out that I pretty much know my schedule for work through the 5th of November, just because of some extenuating circumstances. So it's been fun because I'll have I think half of the movies I'm reviewing in October are for Dallas movie screenings. I've also got, I mentioned Tragedy Girls earlier. That one's coming in a couple weeks. I did a documentary about Laird Hamilton. I'll have a review for that next week on my site. And then also a documentary about the shower scene in Psycho that I watched that'll be in a couple weeks. So it's awesome. Oh, and then The Killing of a Sacred Deer as well. And it's just been awesome. It's been an awesome month so far. So you can also find my writing there. I'm spattered throughout the pages of DallasMovieScreenings.com right now. You can also follow me at Twitter at RealJoelCopling and on Letterboxd at JCopling. So there's
and your October isn't even done yet because we also have a screening of another A24 movie that you're super stoked about and I'm super stoked about. So it just never ends. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's just like with Joel's. It's Real Chase Lee. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to get more in-depth reviews on the mini reviews that I didn't get to talk about. And then of course, please like, follow, share this podcast and this episode, and of course, follow on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio. You guys know where to go. This is the Ultimate Movie Podcast where, hey, if you are not a movie fan and you listen to this entire thing, well, hopefully we convinced you to be one. That is Joel over there. I'm Chase. Next week, The Snowman, The Florida Project. Going to be a lot of fun for episode 204, but this has been 203. All the links will be in the description below, and hey, the intro and outro music is done by my friend's band Fervent Roze. All that in the description below, guys. So peace out. You guys are awesome. We love you to death. See you next week.
Bye.